December 13th, 2011 Board of Selectmen Sewer Commission meeting. Before we start, I am requesting all cell phones and electronic devices be turned off or in a mute position as to not disturb the meeting. Any member of the public also has a right to make an audio or video recording of an open session of a public meeting. A member of the public who wishes to record a meeting must first notify the chair and must comply with reasonable requirements regarding audio or video equipment established by the chair so as not to interfere with the meeting. The chair is required to inform other attendees of such recording at the beginning of the meeting. There is someone that's going to be recording this evening. Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Begley, Selectman Holmes, and Chairman Cruz are present, as is the Town Administrator, Mr. Andrews, and Town Council Rich Bowen.
Thank you very much. Announcement?
Yes, Chairman, if I might, I'm going to hold off turning off my electronic device, if you don't mind. I haven't had a chance to copy this by hand yet, but I would ask for a moment of silence by the public. I had a request from a family. Mr. Bill Elliott has passed. For many who have been around Wareham for a long time know that Bill was the plumbing inspector for Wareham full-time for 12 years and part-time several years after that. He passed away at his home in Lakeville with his wife on Friday, December 9th. He had 2 daughters, 2 sisters, 2 stepsons, and many grandkids and great-grandkids and nieces and nephews. And he was also a graduate from Wareham High School in 1944. So if we could keep the Elliott family in our prayers and have a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay. Announcements. Tomorrow night, in this room, at 7 p.m. I covered them up. Announcements. Yeah, I had the list right here. Oh, here it is. Tomorrow night, Wednesday, December 14th at 7 p.m., there will be a joint meeting of the Wareham Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee here at 7 p.m. With the Powers and Sullivan auditing firm. And I believe we got confirmation that that was going to be televised, correct? Yes. We got that email. So that'll be, if you tune into your Wareham Community Television. I always say that. Coming from born in New Bedford for 50 years, you know, it's. I always say Wayland City. I'm sorry, Wareham Community Television. They'll be broadcasting that meeting. Yeah. I just flipped my announcements. These are all the new good ones. Just give me one moment. I just had them all right in front of me. Oh, here we go. Peter covered it up with the budget numbers. Thank you, Peter. As a reminder, we announced this last week that the Wareham High School Band and Choir will be having a winter concert. That's this Thursday, December 15th, in the Wareham High School Auditorium. The concert will feature works by Eric Whitaker, J.S. Bach, V.J. Sine, and many others, as well as many Christmas tunes. The fire truck will be in Onset again, Box 5, this weekend outside of the Victorian Cafe from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., collecting unwrapped toys and non-perishable food items to be donated to local charities. Again, that's 10 to 4 outside of the Victorian Cafe in Onset. On Saturday at Stevie B's in Onset, we'll be having the fundraiser for the fire victims on Main Street. Tickets are $10. And again, that's 2 p.m. on Saturday, run probably from about 2 to 7. That's all I have. Mrs. Begley? Mr. Chairman?
No.
That takes care of the announcements.
Citizen participation. Okay. Seeing none. Open meeting law clarification by Mr. Rich Bowen. He's going to clarify a statement that was made last week about violation of open meeting law. So we're just going to have a clarification on that.
Oh, yes, Mr. Chairman. I took a look at the issue that was involved, and there seem to be a couple of related issues, I think none of which rose to an open meeting law violation. One was a question about selectman policy that you have on the books, and I want to say it's 88-11. I'm not 100% sure on the citation, but what the policy says is that no individual member can establish a policy without bringing it back to the full board and having the board vote on it. And I guess the particular circumstances that gave rise to that policy being brought up at a meeting had to do with a meeting that the town administrator had convened, asking a few different department heads to come in and brief him on something. So I don't exactly recall what the issue was, but it was initiated by the town administrator, not by, in this case, the chairman of the board. So it wasn't a situation where the chairman, in violation of the policy, had initiated a meeting on his own and had violated the policy. So there was no issue with respect to the selectman policy on that. And in talking with the chairman and the town administrator, it made it pretty clear that if anything was going to come out of these sorts of meetings, a policy, a draft, or whatever, it's the type of thing that would have to come back to the whole board for your approval, because, as we all know, one board member has no authority to bind the board to any particular course of action. So it didn't seem to be an issue with respect to the event that was discussed.
Excuse me, I thought I made an announcement. I'll make it again. So can we check and see who it is so we can? And we don't want to close the door because everybody else is like I am. It's kind of.
It's hot in here. Yeah, might as well. Could be a little Santa Claus.
I never knew we had a phone out there.
Yeah. Now, the other aspect of the issue was, if you have a meeting where the town administrator has asked certain department heads to report back to him on something that's ongoing, would that be covered by the open meeting law? And I would say unless the town administrator is actually forming a subcommittee or a special study committee, I'd say the answer is no. So for example, if the town administrator, called me into his office on a particular day wanting to talk about a legal issue, and maybe brought the town treasurer in, perhaps we were going to talk about tax titles or something like that, would that sort of meeting be subject to the open meeting law? And the answer is no. And even if a board member, happened to be in town hall and wanted to sit in and attend, would that be a violation of the open meeting law? And the answer is no. It's just sort of routine business, and the presence of a particular board member wouldn't all of a sudden turn it into a violation. On the other hand, if you were setting up, if the town administrator were setting up, if the board were setting up special subcommittees, and they were meeting, yeah, you'd want to get those posted and follow the open meeting law. So I did not review the tape of the particular comment that was made, but from having talked to a number of people about it, it sounds like more it was a need for clarification or perhaps a misunderstanding rather than any particular violation. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Holmes?
Well, can I just ask a question through you, Rich? As I recall sitting here over the last couple of weeks in regards to these meetings. I think it came up, we were talking about transportation or buses or something. And Mrs. Begley made a motion to set up a committee. It was part of an overall motion. Mrs. Winslow made the motion to allow graduate students to do a survey or an assessment. And my portion of that was not to buy any school buses, and Mrs. Begley suggested that we form a committee, right, of various members of different boards in the public. And I think where this came up was when the chairman said, and maybe he just used the wrong words, we already have a committee for that. I think it was in that context that he and the chairman of the school committee, Mr. Andrews, finance, Barry, right, and made it sounded like it was a committee.
Yeah.
As opposed to your clarification that it's a meeting. So I even had wondered about that myself. How can you form a committee like that? So if it's not a committee, then there's no violation. But if it is a committee,
if there is a committee, you have to follow the rules that are applicable to all committees. So I think in this case, I did ask, well, how did all these folks gather up? And I believe it was at the town administrator's request. So, but it just you can never go wrong in maybe being overcautious and just post the heck out of everything. Not always easy.
Mr. Begley?
Yeah, it does. It does. And and the new rules are, I think they're difficult.
record note that Mr. Schneider is present. Am I?
Hey, Steve.
Mrs. Begley, anything? No. He was just clarifying the open meeting law that was brought up last week, so he was clarifying it, so he's finished with that.
Mr. Chair, is it okay if Attorney Bowen just kind of sums it up in a nutshell, like in a minute or so for Selectman Schneider?
I think I heard enough of the conversation with respect to what's being addressed. I think I'm not sure if it addressed the issue of whether or not the school committee, as individual members, the entire school committee, and the Board of Selectmen meeting individually with particular members of the school committee, if that constitutes a round-robin discussion. And I think that for the purposes of my issue last week, it wasn't so much in relation to the committee or task force, whatever we're discussing in relation to the two chairmen of the school committee, the school superintendent, and the town administrator meeting. My comments weren't in relation to the open meeting law. My comments were in relation to policy set by the Board of Selectmen. And I read from that policy last week. So just so that that's very clear from my standpoint. So if you care to address that one, I don't know if you'd address that question.
Yes, sir. I did sit down and take a look at the policy, and the policy made it, I think, very clear that meetings, studies, committees, and so forth cannot be initiated by any individual member, but they have to be the result of a full authorization of the board before you can go off and do that. And the policy is very clear on that. I think on the particular case that was under discussion before, the first question I had about it was, okay, well, who suggested, who was the initiating factor? Was it a member of the Board of Selectmen, in which case it would have been a violation of your policy, or did somebody else initiate it? And it's, from what I've learned, it was my understanding that the town administrator initiated a get-together of these different officials so that it wasn't in violation of your policy. Now, if one of you had initiated it, it would have been.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Attorney Bowen. Mr. Bowen, while I appreciate your comments, from my standpoint, the policy reads that no position of the Board of Selectmen can be presented to anyone else either. And clearly, a motion was drafted and adopted as a result of the discussion that took place. I don't want to get into splitting hairs, but from my standpoint, what's important is that we have the town charter, we have the bylaws, we have Mass General Law, and we have Board of Selectmen policies. And from my standpoint, our whole structure is based on following the rules and the law. And I just want to make sure that we're following the rules and the law as best we can.
Yes, sir. With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I think that the safest way to look at it is that, we as board members, or more accurately, you as board members, you enjoy power as a board, although, and you may enjoy power individually as may be delegated to you by the board, but absent that kind of delegation by the board, by a vote of the board, each board member is, if I say powerless, that's not accurate, but you can't go out and do stuff on your own. You need the authority of the whole board. You need a majority vote on everything before you can do something. And I think if you stick to that basic premise, you'll never go wrong.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, you have the grant discussion with Peter.
Mr. Sanborn?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm before you tonight to request that you vote to move forward with the submission of the federal fiscal year 2012 Community Development Block Grant application in the amount of $900,000. This application deadline is this Friday, and I sent a memo to the board, which I hope is in your packet, that provided a status of the town's current grants and a preliminary budget. And tonight I passed out to you a recommended finalized budget, which has some adjustments to the budget that is in your packet. Basically, it's a reallocation of some $24,000 within the budget. So the proposed grant application, if you accept this, would be to have continued funding for the Housing Rehabilitation Program, fund the Phase 2 construction of the Village Streetscape Project, and fund 4 social service activities. And then the balance of the funds would be allocated to general administration and project delivery funds. So,
Speak into the mic a little bit.
okay, I thought I was, but excuse me. So,
Well, I'd make a motion to accept and approve the fiscal year 2012 mini grant entitlement grant application as presented by Mr. Sanborn.
I'll second. For discussion, I have one question. Mr. Chair, through
Motion
you.
made and second. Discussion.
Mr. Sanborn, the $24,000, is that the construction administration?
No, it's not. It's a coincidental amount. But it comprises the difference between what's in your memo and this recommended here is a reduction of $20,000 from what the preliminary had allocated for police detail, and a reduction of $4,000 from the social service programs. And those reductions were added to the program delivery and general administration budget.
Now, the $4,000, did that come from any one particular program, or did you just take $1,000?
It came $1,000 from the first item, the Christopher Donovan Day School scholarships, and $3,000 from the OWL Pass program. If I can just explain the Christopher Donovan Day School scholarships, they are not scholarships for the students, the special needs students. It's actually it's a tuition or a scholarship payment to enable low-income families to participate by sending their child to a Saturday respite program. Many of the children there have very serious behavioral problems, and this is really it's a Saturday program where the family can send the child to the school for Saturdays.
And that $1,000 represents a child, or?
It represents a reduction of the number of times somebody can go. It's not a precise figure. The enrollment is, as I understand it, $90 per child per session there, per day.
And we're adding that $24,000 to the program delivery and general administration because our costs in that area have increased. Why?
This is actually a reduction from what was budgeted from the current grant. It's a substantial reduction. I would say this is a bare bones budget that will provide the necessary staffing and operations of the office for the duration of the grant period. It wouldn't have, in fact, there's an overlap between current grants. There will be an anticipated overlap between this new grant and current grants. And that overlap actually is enabling this budget to be substantially less than it would otherwise have to be to support the office operation.
And that would be because last year we had $1 million, and this year we have $900,000. Is that what the?
That's part of it, yes.
Okay. What would the other part be?
An anticipated greater overlap. According to DHCD, the next grant is going to start earlier than the prior two have, so the cycle's changing somewhat.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Sinet?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Sanborn, just to follow up on Selectman Winslow's question, while the time frames might be overlapping, is the periods, what is the standard period? Is it 12 months? So wouldn't we still be reduced by $100,000?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Ms. Selectman Schneider, I'm not certain I understand your question. The $100,000 reduction is just is a $100,000 reduction that's being imposed on by the state, so it's not as a result of the budget period. The maximum grant term can be 18 months.
Okay, so let me rephrase the question. For the same time period last year, the amount that we received was $1 million.
That's right.
For the same time period this coming year, we're receiving $900,000.
Correct.
And the reason for that is?
Reductions of this appropriation at the federal level.
Okay.
So in the current grant year, they actually, Congress reduced the funding by approximately 16%. The state, which is the conduit for this, decided not to reduce funds for the mini entitlement community, of which Wareham falls in that category. The budget that Congress passed, the HUD budget that Congress passed for fiscal 12 is a further nearly 12% reduction on top of the 16% last year. So as a result of this, the state decided to roll back the maximum that communities like Wareham could apply for, from $1 million to $900,000.
I understand. Thank you for the explanation. I just have one other question. The OWL Pass program being reduced by $3,000, what impact is that going to have on the program?
It won't have any immediate impact because, in fact, it has existing funding that should carry it. At some point, these reductions are going to will have impacts, but for the life of this grant, it should be adequate. I think that, you know, if the town continues to experience reductions in these grant amounts, there will be impacts on these programs. There are programs, social service programs, that have been funded in prior years that are not funded this year. Fortunately, there's enough funding in the pipeline to carry them, most of them through late 2012, some of them even into early 2013, which is why some familiar names from the past aren't on this list.
So what you're saying is, my concern was whether or not the services would be impact on the OWL Pass program, and what you're saying is that they will not be impacted at this point.
Not immediately, no.
Thank you, Mr. Sanborn.
Mr. Holmes?
Peter, we will get this right one more time.
Unless Congress impounds the funds, yes.
And then after this year, we'll have to fight. Is that the
We
same
don't
idea
know.
you got,
We really don't know yet. I mean, you know, this is fiscal 2012. Congress just within, I believe, the past month approved the HUD budget for 2012. No one knows what's on hand in 2013. I mean, Wareham has this mini entitlement status, you know, one of 10 communities, because the state perceives you as a very needy community. The state could, DHCD, who administers these grants, could rethink this designation, and they, for the next funding round, they could put you in a competitive cycle with what most of the other communities in the state are in. So,
as I recall, when we met with them, they said we had one more year, which would be this application.
well, they have not signaled that they're going to do away with the mini
Right.
entitlement program.
But they were very positive about one more, and then
Right.
we'll see what happens, kind of an attitude. So, good. Thank you.
Mr. Bigley?
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Hi, Mr. Sanborn. How are you? I attended 2 of the public hearings. How many did you have? Did you have 3?
We
Or
had
just
two.
The two.
You had a perfect track record.
Yeah, there were 2 public hearings regarding this 2012 mini entitlement grant application. And at those hearings, I mean, it was very informative and unfortunately not well attended. The first one was, and the second one,
Was not.
we all kind of fit around a table. But they presented maps of the socioeconomic neighborhoods that were being concentrated on, and you at that time explained a formula, because it can't all go into one, like social services. So there's a certain formula that you have, and guidelines, that you have to abide by in the disbursement of these funds, correct?
That's correct.
So a lot of these questions that have been asked tonight were addressed during those public hearings, and it's, will you be posting the minutes to those hearings, or I think it might be valuable for some of the citizens to have some of that input.
Absolutely.
So if
Actually, they were just finalized this morning.
Okay.
So for both of them, but yes.
So once the Cedar board approves those minutes, if Matt could get those up as soon as possible, including the maps, and I think all of that would be helpful to the entire community.
I taken to heart your comments about more information.
Always. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, motion was made by Steve, second by Kara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Before
Mr.
Thank you,
Sanborn.
Peter.
We do have a designation for environmental certifying officer, which would be Mark Andrews. So I'm just presenting it to the board.
Right.
That's part of the grant.
It's part of the grant submittal. It's sort of a administrative exercise. I know there was a comment, I think,
They're all the
last
same.
year, why it was not Dave Pichette. And what this is about, it's really not about the environment or specific permitting. It's about there has to be somebody in a position of authority, legal authority, who would assume responsibility should somebody challenge whether or not there's an environmental review process that's followed for every grant. So it needs to be really either the chairman of the board or the town administrator, who just would be the person that an aggrieved would petition to should they have a grievance about the process.
So this designation of environmental certification, in my capacity, I'm reading now, in my capacity as chairman of the Board of Selectmen for the town of Wareham, Massachusetts, I designate Mark J. Andrews, town administrator, as the environmental certification officer, signed by Walter B. Cruz, senior chairman of the board, December 13, 2011. So moved. So we have at least a supporting motion.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Winslow.
I mean, there will be other forms that the chairman will be signing relating to this grant. So,
Can you take a vote?
Okay. Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. No questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Thanks,
thank you very
Peter.
much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanborn.
Thank you, Mr.
By
Sanborn.
the way, if anybody, there are extra copies if anybody wants to see the summary of the budget here. The public does.
Enjoy your holidays.
Thank you.
Next up is the discussion of Westfield.
Mr. Sanborn?
Westfield discussion.
Mr. Begley?
I thought I guess this is just going to be an ongoing. I thought we kind of determined last week that after the first of the year that we were going to
Yes, we
revisit
did.
this.
I just happened to put it on.
January.
So it would be redundant to have that conversation again.
Right.
So,
January 14th at 8:30 is the meeting.
right. Okay. Just want to clarify.
Right?
Right,
That's
correct.
what we
That's what we agreed
said,
on.
I think.
Right.
The office has already posted it.
There was an email, however, by the chair of the Westfield Committee that said he couldn't make it. It's a holiday weekend.
He, Mrs. Begley, he called me and I paraphrased Mr. Schneider's comments that didn't really matter.
Right.
That it was a Board of Selectmen issue.
Right.
They were welcome to attend, but wasn't necessary. If they could make it, they could make it.
Okay.
The question I had, because I did get another call on this, was, is this going to be a discussion of Westfield only or senior affordable housing? Okay.
Consent agenda?
That's all I had. Anybody else on Westfield? Mr. Chairman, we have two bills. On Contract 2, CWS RF 3022, estimate number 15, on the amount of $177,650. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Kara. Any questions? Mrs. Begley?
I'm going to vote in the affirmative on these bills, but I definitely want, with any of the subsequent bills, the closer we get to 100%, I just want to be sure with Mr. Campina that the issues that have been ongoing with Contract 2 are addressed to this board's, the sewer commissioner and Mr. Campina's satisfaction before we pay in full. That's just my only concern.
Right, well, that's a good move. Plus, anything on Contract 1 needs to be a written documentation, because I think they're almost coming up to their year on warranty. So we need to document everything, so at least it's on file, never been corrected. So if something needs to be done, we're covered. Mr. Sled?
I agree with Selectman Begley. These vendors have worked and they deserve to be paid. However, you know, I'm going to raise the issue again that I raised a couple of weeks ago with Mr. Campina, and that is that I would like to see a full accounting of all the betterments and how the user fees are being spent and how they're being allocated. I think that that's important for us as sewer commissioners. And I'm voting for this simply for the fact that, you know, these vendors do deserve to be paid.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mrs. Winslow?
Two quick things. First, it's my understanding that the retainage on the contract is to address any of those types of issues that Mrs. Begley brings up. So that money shouldn't be, or wouldn't be, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the whole point of the retainage.
Right, it is.
And I do believe that when, now as we near the middle of December, we're about to get everybody's budgets, that is where Mr. Schneider will, that's where the information about what the budget is for the sewer and how that money is split up into the different accounts. That's not where it is?
Mr. Holmes, you're just sitting there like you're ready to pounce. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna follow up on my colleague's statement, but I'll wait.
Oh no, I'm done. I
Not
won't.
your statement.
Oh
I'll wait.
no, I'm good.
I was gonna bring it up at sewer commissioner's time, so I'll wait. This is on this invoice.
I have additional comments too, so I'll hold them until sewer business.
Okay, if there isn't any more questions on this, if not, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Mr. Chairman, we also have before us Contract 2, estimate number 16, which is for $332,051.94. Make a motion to pay it.
Second.
Which one?
Yeah, you can give it to Ellen.
Alan? Steve made the motion, second by Alan. Any question?
I'm in a generous mood.
We'll split it around.
I heard Mrs. Begley first. She's on the good ear.
Any questions? One more time. If none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Now, we're up to a fun part of the meeting, and I would just ask my colleagues. I know that we started early tonight, and we have some time. So, if you would, please try to sign these tonight, so that the ladies in the office aren't killing me tomorrow, because they'll expect us to sign these. We're up to the licenses and permits, and we'll try to go through them as expeditiously as possible.
Okay, license and permits. I think last year what we did was read the names off and vote at the end. So,
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I believe that I have to read each name,
right, you have to read.
and then we can
Vote at the
we
end.
can. Just do it wrong. Okay. Mr. Andrews, you touched my box. What's up with that? What are you doing? What are you doing? No, she has to wait till We're going to do it properly. So we're going to vote, and then we'll pass the box around, but we're going to vote first and do it right. Okay? I don't want anybody seeing you signing papers until we vote, please. Right? That's right.
Continue. License and permit.
I got nailed on that once at town meeting, if you recall. I got my hand slapped for that. And we don't do that no more. All right, let's start off here with the first group is the renewal of year-round retail packaged goods stores, all alcoholic beverage licenses for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law. And I believe that she has these all in nice order for us. Maybe not. I'll go off the paper, I guess. That might be the easiest way to do it. Yeah, she's already got this one mixed, see. So I'd make a motion that we approve Vinayak Liquors, doing business as Anchor Liquors, Deepal Patel, manager, Cranberry Highway, Wareham, Mass.
Second.
Thought we were going to read all the whole list and then vote on it.
I believe we have to do them one at a time, Mr. Chair.
Each name at a time, Mr. Chairman, in case there is an issue.
Motion made and second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? 5-0-0.
I move that we renew the year-round retail packaged goods under the provisions of Chapter 138 Mass General Law for Assipini Liquors, Raymond Vizina, manager, 3 Barker Road, East Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I make a motion that we renew the year-round retail packaged goods store all alcoholic beverage licenses for the year 2012 under Chapter 138 of Mass General Law for Brown's Package Store, doing business as Brown Liquor, Kara Jara, manager, 135 Marion Road.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Any questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move that we
All
renew.
opposed? Excuse me. Wait until I'm finished.
I thought you were done.
No. When I'm out, when I announce the
Okay.
vote. 5-0-0.
I'll try to turn my head a little bit for you. I move that we renew the year-round retail packaged goods store all alcoholic beverage licenses for the year 2012 on the Chapter 138 Mass General Law for the Ginger's Company Limited, doing business as the Jug Shop, Main Street, Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Hearing no questions. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Make a motion that we renew the year-round retail packaged goods store beverage license for 2012 on the provisions of 138 Mass General Law for the Liquor Locker on Cranberry Highway in Wareham, Mass.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Any questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? 5-0-0.
I make a motion we renew the following year-round retail packaged goods store all alcoholic beverage licenses for the year 2012, Chapter 138 Mass General Law for Mayflower Liquors, Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Mass.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Any questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Sir?
You want me to say it a little louder? Or?
Okay. I didn't hear you say the numbers. Renewal, I make a motion to
What do you want him
renew.
to say?
Are you
The
done?
reason why I'm not making the motions and saying who made the motion, who seconded it, because they have a problem in the office with the tape of who's seconded, because they can't hear it over the speakers. So just to clarify everything with the ladies in the office. Thank you very much.
I make a motion we renew the following year-round retail packaged goods store all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under Chapter 138 of Mass General Law for the Mill Pond Station, LLC, Jack Audley's manager, Cranberry Highway, Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Any questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Make a motion that we renew the following year-round retail packaged goods store all alcoholic beverage licenses for the year 2012 under Chapter 138 of Mass General Law for the Oak Grove Corporation, Ronald McCoy, manager, 47 Depot Street, East Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Any questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
Make a motion that we renew the year-round retail packaged goods store all alcoholic beverage licenses for the year 2012 under Chapter 138 of Mass General Law for Onset Village Market.
Second.
231 Onset Ave, Onset.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Any questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
I make a motion that we renew the following year-round retail packaged goods store all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under provisions of Chapter 138 Mass General Law for Pepin's Liquors on Cranberry Highway, West Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Any questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 500.
Make a motion we renew the following year-round retail goods store all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 Mass General Law for DJ Sullivan doing business as Sullivan Wine and Spirit, 260 Marion Road, Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Any questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
Make a motion we renew the following year-round retail packaged goods store all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 Mass General Law to Wareham Liquors, Dipil Ben Patel, manager, 419 Main Street, Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
I make a motion to renew the following year-round packaged goods store all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 Mass General Law for Wines and More, Wareham, Thorpe J. Durham, manager, 2421 Cranberry Highway, Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
Mr. Chair, I know that there's going to be some issues that come up under B. Could I make a suggestion that we hold the ones for discussion since we're getting, we only have 25 minutes before the posted hearing. We can get through the ones without issues and then start discussing the ones there may be issues with. If
Any
the
questions
board,
from the board? Because these are renewals, so.
they are, but there's, I know I have one. Thank you, Mr. Holmes. So instead of engaging in a long discussion and interrupting our scheduled hearing time, if there's going to be an issue with one, can we just hold it and then just come back to it and discuss it?
Okay, that'll be fine.
If that suits everybody.
Looking at the board, all agree, just nod your head. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Holmes?
Okay. The next group is the renewal of the year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage licenses for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 Mass General Law. Okay, so I would make a motion that we renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage licenses for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 for Bailey Surf and Trip, Richard O'Melia, manager, Cranberry Highway, Wareham, Mass. East Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
I make a motion to renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138, General Laws of Massachusetts, Digital Credit Union, Bay Point Country Club, 19 Bay Point Drive, Onset.
Could we hold this one, please?
I withdraw my motion.
Thank
So
you.
go ahead.
Hold.
Mr. Winslow, you can make a motion to that respect?
I make a motion to hold.
I don't think you have to. We can just revisit
No,
it.
we can do it after.
Okay.
Oh, you might just want him to come
Right.
back to it?
Yeah.
All right,
I'd like to
Two.
come back to the next one as well.
okay.
2 and 3.
I make a motion that we renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 for Charlie's Place on Cranberry Highway, Wareham, Mass.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. That's Charlie's Place. Questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, 500.
Make a motion that we renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138, Mass General Law, for Pepper Dining doing business as Chili's Bar and Grill, Cranberry Highway, East Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, 500.
Make a motion that we renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138, Mass General Law, for L.R. Hunt LLC doing business as Cafe Soleil, Main Street, Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, 500.
Make a motion to renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138, Mass General Law, for Mark Inc., doing business as China Garden, Marion Road, Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, 500.
Make a motion to renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law to Ella's Woodburn and Oven Restaurant, 3136 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Mass.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, 500.
Make a motion to renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 Mass General Law for the Fan Club, 2859 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Question? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, 500.
Make a motion to renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 Mass General Law for the Gateway Tavern, 371 Marion Road, Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Question? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
500.
Make a motion to renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 Mass General Law for the Hong Kong Island Restaurant, 3035 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Question? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, 500.
Make a motion to renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 Mass General Law for Lindsay's Restaurant, 3138 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, 500.
Make a motion to renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 Mass General Law for Little Harbor Country Club, 2 Little Harbor Road, Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, 500.
Make a motion to renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law for Rare Hospitality International, doing business as Longhorn Steakhouse, 2421 Cranberry Highway, Suite 480, Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, 500.
Make a motion to renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law for Concall Inc., doing businesses in the Narrows Crossing Restaurant, 1 Narrows Road, Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
Make a motion to renew the following year-round common victular all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of the Mass General Law for the 99 Restaurants of Boston on 3013 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
I make a motion that we renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law for Stevie B's Onset Sports Review, 270 Onset. Doing business as the Onset Sports Resort. Thought it was in Vegas. Steve Berenger, manager, 270 Onset Avenue, Onset.
Second.
Second by Kara. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
Make a motion to renew the following year-round common victular all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law for Blue Dog LLC, doing business as Piper BoS, 207 Main Street, Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
Make a motion that we renew the following year-round common victular all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law for the Peer Review Restaurant, Stephen Baptiste, manager, 201 Onset Avenue, Onset, Mass.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
Could you
Make-
hold this next one, please?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if we could put that one aside.
Hold number 20.
Make a motion to renew the following year-round common victular all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law for Red Robin International, doing business at Red Robin's American Gerber Gourmet Burgers and Spirits, 2421 Cranberry Highway, Suite 350, Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 500.
Can we hold the next one, Mr. Chairman?
Hold
two?
22.
Next two, yes. Thank you.
Make a motion we renew the following year-round common victular all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law for Salerno's Inc., doing business at Salerno's Function Hall, John C. Salerno, manager, 196 Onset Avenue, Onset.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
Make a motion to renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law for Hadley McIntosh Enterprise, doing business as the Stonebridge, Justin Hadley, manager, 5 East Boulevard, Onset, Mass.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 500.
Make a motion to renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law for Vell's Restaurant, 2352 Cranberry Highway, West Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
Make a motion to renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law for Wasabi Steakhouse, doing business as Zen Place, 2421 Cranberry Highway, Wareham, Mass.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
Mr. Chairman, I take you back to number 2, the renewal of the Digital Credit Union doing business as Bay Point Country Club. That was asked to be put on hold, I believe, by Mrs. Winslow.
I just have a question, and Attorney Bowen has left the room, so it's probably best directed to him. But can the bank hold the liquor license with a contracted employee as the manager. I thought that we were having all those permits come before us individually.
To clarify, this license is the license not for the pavilion, but for the clubhouse. Two separate licenses. You have the pavilion is a seasonal, and you have the clubhouse, which is a year-round, which is this one.
Okay. But is the manager on the premise?
Yeah, actually, right now the place is closed. I thought you were going a different direction.
I'm going in that direction.
In her direction?
Your direction.
My direction. Mr. Chairman, if Mrs. Winslow
Okay,
would...
wait.
Yeah, no, go. I was going to go down there, but I'll let you.
My question on holding this is, we issued this license sometime in June or July, and I asked about the status. One night the gentleman was here, and he said that they were going to open the bar in 2 weeks. Now, obviously, many of you know I play golf there, so if it's a problem, it's a problem. But I've received many phone calls from golfers, and obviously being there, that I truly believe, well, never mind what I believe, this bar never opened. They never put this license in force. We asked them twice here in public. The last time the guy told me, Mr. Harriman, that it was going to be 2 weeks and the bar would be open. I checked with Shirley last Thursday, I want to say, and this license apparently has never come back to the town. So they've never picked this license up. It's never been put in force, so how can we renew it? This was not part of a jobs bill. This was not part of any special legislation. Oh, I see Mr. Bowen is here. Maybe he can answer that question. This was not part of any special legislation for jobs. This has been a license that's been around for a long time.
Mr. Bowen?
Mr. Chairman, through you to the members of the board. You know, with your permission, I'll give a little bit of an overview, and then we can get right down to brass tacks on this particular license.
Just, Rich, through you, Mr. Chairman, Rich, if you wouldn't mind, just keep it on the clock because we have a hearing at 7:15.
Well, I know we got to do the tax classification.
Well, so if we could get through this piece of it before 7:15.
And I guess my long-windedness is
I love you.
is noted. Well, here's the bottom line. On all renewals, they're governed by a statute. It's Chapter 138, Section 16. I want to say 16A. You know, but what the statute says is that liquor licenses shall be renewed, and it uses the word "shall," unless cause is shown. And what that is taken to mean is that you automatically renew everything unless you send out notice of a hearing and state some causes as to why you might not renew it. And in the case of renewals, I believe the recommended advance notice, if you're contemplating a possible non-renewal, would be 2 weeks written notice. And the notice would say, you know, dear so-and-so, on time, date, and place, be at the hearing room to discuss a possible non-renewal because you never opened up your license. Now that brings us to this particular license, and as we went down the list, and I could kind of predict the holds that might be coming because I think a lot of the ones that were held, I won't say all of them, you know, have similar sorts of issues. They've either not opened yet, or you know, they're closing up for a few months at a time. I mean, there's a whole bunch of issues here that you're going to want to deal with.
Yeah, I'll try to keep this short.
Yeah, you probably do better than I will.
This is a license that we voted on, okay? It went to the state, and it's still being held up there. They have not approved this license to come back to town, apparently. So how can you renew something that the ABCC has not approved yet?
This would be the digital one?
This digital.
Yeah.
In other words, there's nothing to renew. It hasn't been issued to digital. They still haven't received it.
Yeah, and the way it works up at the state is that they they have a wholesaler list that they take a look at for payments. They kick it over to the Department of Revenue to see about meals tax and other taxes and so forth. And a lot of times when a license gets approved, even in a kind of a transfer situation, they will take a look at the party from whom the license is being transferred and will sometimes hold up the whole process while they sort out these different payment issues. I'm guessing, only guessing, that may be what's happening here. But your question is, how can you renew something that hasn't yet been renewed or approved by the state? We don't have a piece of paper back from the state that says they can open. I think the answer is you can't. But I wouldn't recommend that you take a vote not renewing it tonight, because I think you'd want to go through the proper notification period. And I think it would behoove Digital to be here, Mr.
Harriman.
Thank you. Mr. Harriman to be here with his attorney explaining where this is in the whole process. And I think you're entitled to that. And I'd recommend that you send a notice out and invite him back in.
You have to have 2 weeks' notice. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. You have to have 2 weeks' notice. Well, today's the 13th, so
yeah.
we're in a bind there.
I think we meet on the 3rd, right?
No, 10th, I think. We're off for 2 weeks.
Can we short notice them and try for the 20th, Mr. Bowen?
Well,
we need to have some answers.
yeah, you need to have the answers.
This is not a license. I don't think this is a real competitive issue at this point.
Yeah. It's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't type thing. If you approved it tonight, and I'm not making recommendations here one way or the other. If you approved it tonight and you sent the approval up to the ABCC, okay, you would have taken an action. The ABCC would probably bounce it because it hasn't been approved yet at their level. If you didn't approve it tonight, and let's say you posted a hearing for, I forget the date, January 2nd or 3rd, what are they going to do? Take an appeal to the ABCC about your non-renewal? By the time the ABCC heard the non-renewal, it would be sometime in March. So, I think if you've got the questions, maybe doing the early January thing is the way to go.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
through you to Attorney Bowen, could we renew the license and then send them notice for a hearing for failure to open?
Absolutely.
So perhaps that would be our best route to go. Then we cover ourselves as far as the renewal because we didn't make any notification. And then if the board so chooses on a future agenda, we can take this matter up and send notice to the license holder to appear for a hearing for failure to open. Then we don't have to worry about the end of the year coming. And
that way, if the ABCC bounces it, it's not on you.
It's
right.
between
them and the ABCC. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. It's the Santa hat.
Then in that case, I would make a motion to renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 for Digital Credit Union doing business as Bay Point Country Club, 19 Bay Point Drive, Onset, Mass.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to make a
5-0.
motion at this time that we schedule a hearing for January. I got to find May on the calendar.
Mr. Holmes, could we hold up on that because you got a couple other holes and you might want to do the same thing with all of them and we can get them all at one time? If you make a date now for everything you have on hold in case we have a problem with them.
Well, we could have separate motions with the same date,
Okay.
don't you think, Mr. Cruz?
'Cause the next meeting is the 10th, I think.
Would that be January?
I mean, after the 20th.
So,
So,
can I make the motion or not?
yeah, you can, go
Oh.
ahead. If you want to make a
I'd make a
motion.
motion that we schedule a hearing on January 17th on the license issued to Digital Credit Union doing business as Bay Point Country Club.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, made by Steve, second by Mike.
And basically, I think that,
Any other question?
oh, I'm sorry. And basically, the point is to ask them to come in, tell us what's going on down there. Apparently, I didn't see the sign, but I heard the sign said they were closed until April. And I don't even recall seeing an email from these people. So I would just like to have Mr. Harriman come in, or whoever his representatives are, and tell us what's going on with this license on the 17th of January.
Motion, any other question? Motion made. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
I think Mrs. Begley, you put this one on hold?
At this time,
Well, is it going to take long? Oh, go ahead.
Is that all right, Mr. Cruz?
which one are we going to?
Number 3.
Captain Al's.
Captain Al's Restaurant. If I may, Mr. Cruz, Attorney Bowen, would you recommend the same thing if we have concerns about Captain Al's Restaurant, I'm assuming? Because we certainly should just renew the license and then have a show cause hearing.
I really think that that's the way to, in terms of the timing that you've got, due process, and consistency for everybody, I think that's the way to go. And as I've mentioned to members individually, it might also be worth taking a look at revising your liquor license regulations so that, rather than being scattered across a bunch of documents, and some of them I suspect have not been enforced in a great number of years, let's get them all in one document, hold a hearing, get all these people and set them notice so that so nobody can say, I didn't know about this. Get their comments and then vote something and then apply the rules across the board to everybody. But
If I may, Mr. Cruz, I was looking at the policies, and one of the policies that the Selectman has on the alcohol licenses, which is 8814A, and it's on page 5. All applicants shall be open for business during all hours authorized by their license, except in an emergency or as authorized by the licensing authority, which is us. And with Captain Al's, we received an email on October 26th that they would be closed for renovating and cleaning from October 11th, so 2 weeks prior, through March 20th of 2012, which is an extended period of time. So I'd like to have a show cause hearing scheduled for this as well.
Okay, so we're going to proceed the same way. We'll go ahead and
Well, I think
approve.
it's 2 separate issues.
It is. No, it's not the same issue, but it's an issue.
Do you have to have a show of cause hearing, or could we just ask the gentleman to come in and have a discussion about this? I just think that there's 2 separate. And this is not, that email is nothing new that I've witnessed since I've been here. They send emails, they all do. I'm open until 3, I'm closing at 5, I'm closing for renovations. Happened last year with another place near the water. And I never see responses go back, okay? I never see anybody say, okay, that's okay. And I'm closing for renovations. It's the same email we saw last year from somebody else.
Well, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Holmes, my concern is this. We shouldn't be notified that people who hold licenses, well, they're just telling us what they're going to do. That's not the policy. The policy is, right, so that it's by the licensing authority. So I know that this particular establishment did have another time that they were closed for an extended period of time. And it may be that, we can have a conversation. I certainly don't want to make assumptions about this business and would like them to come in and speak to this board.
Okay, so why
And
don't we...
I would like it to be a hearing in case it goes into other issues.
So let's go ahead with the whole and make the same motion we made with the previous. Go ahead
So
and
you have-
approve it.
let's
and then
approve
make a
it.
motion. Still have a motion to hear, to have a hearing.
No,
Miss-
you still, I think what Mr. Cruz is saying, Mr. Holmes, is we need to renew the license, so we need that motion.
Right, okay. So I'll make a motion to renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 in the provisions of Chapter 138 for Captain Al's, 3236 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Mass.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 500.
Mr. Chair,
And then, Mr. Chairman, real quick,
Can-
I'll try the motion, and Mrs. Begley wants to change it, that's fine. And I would request that we ask Alfred Harrington, manager, to come before the board on January 17th to meet with the Board of Selectmen to discuss its closure.
I'll second for discussion. Mr. Chair, Attorney Bowen is present tonight, and my concern, obviously I am concerned that they're closed for an extended period of time. However, that email did come in October, and it's now December. Are we putting ourselves in a precarious position by...
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I shuffled off just to get out of the way of the 7:15 hearing. That was all. Perhaps when that hearing is over, I would like to make a few comments. There are things you can do. I always have to distinguish between telling you what you can do by law and then sometimes venturing over and saying, here's what I think you ought to do. So if maybe after the hearing I can come back up, I'd be happy to tell you what I think.
I'll withdraw my
that
second.
motion.
Okay, so right now it's approved, and we'll hold on to...
Next, we have
Yeah,
a
we'll come
public
to-
hearing on the tax
Now
classification.
we have a public hearing. Mr. Clerk. Need a motion?
Motion to open the public hearing for the discussion of tax classification. Yeah, I got it here.
Motion to open the public hearing. As second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Snyder. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
I read the notice. Would you like me to read the notice, Mr. Chairman? In accordance, notice of public hearing, in accordance with the Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 56, the Wareham Board of Selectmen will now be conducting a public hearing on Tuesday, December 13, 2011, at 7:15, the Multi-Service Center, Room 320, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., to receive public input relative to his decision to determine the fiscal year residential factor. The residential factor determines the allocation of the real and personal property tax burden between various classes of property. Oral and written information on the views of taxpayers of the town with respect to this matter will be received and considered up until the noon of the hearing on December 13, 2011. Comments may be mailed to the Town Administrator, Carroll Selectman's Office, 54 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass. 02571. All comments received before the hearing will be read into the record at the hearing. Oral presentations will be made at the hearing. Wareham Board of Selectmen, Walter B. Cruz, Sr., Chairman. Did we get any comments sent by mail to be read into the record? Mr. Chairman, we received no comments that were sent by the mail. Therefore, you are now free to have to receive oral presentations.
Mr. Chairman, may I hand these to
Yes.
you? I'm sorry they weren't in your packet.
Hey there, how are you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just remember, if you would, to state your name for the record and speak very close to the microphone so that everybody can hear.
I doubt I need it,
Okay.
as you may have heard. Do you need another one, Chairman, or are you coming back? Do you want me to wait? Oh, I really do have to lean in there. I just thought you were friendly with that mic, Steve. Let me preface this with, we are not certified yet. We are in a triennial revaluation, which is being done or performed by Vision. All our documentation and values have been submitted to the Department of Revenue. And at this point, the Deputy Director of the Department of Revenue, Brenda Cameron, has given us permission to go ahead and hold the classification hearing so that we can keep things moving along. You will not be able to take your vote tonight, as I discussed with, I believe, Chairman, and well, we're not certified. We haven't gotten to preliminary certification yet, so you can't vote on something that hasn't been, there are no values certified, okay? I'll go through that in the packet. But Brenda Cameron had given us permission to go ahead and hold public disclosure for the public. That was finished today, and we had no one in on public disclosure. So from the town side, our values appear to be fine from our taxpayers. We are waiting now for preliminary certification. When we receive preliminary certification, I will continue to enter the available data into the recapitulation sheet, or the recap of which is part of what you decide tonight as to whether we're going to factor a split rate or a factor of 1 for the residential and commercial. So if we take a look at what I presented you, the cover is just a cover letter explaining what I basically just said to you, is that this is to discuss what has happened and where we stand as far as the values in general, and the recommendation is to go to a split rate or not. The second and third page is what will come before you again when the Board of Selectmen votes either to split the rate or go for a factor of 1, which is the history in this town due to the nature of the makeup of the town, percentage-wise commercial and residential. The third page is a spreadsheet that was prepared by, I'm sorry, I didn't introduce you, Gary Miser. This is the new Assistant Director of Assessment in Wareham. I'm sorry, the board. Gary prepared this afternoon, showing you the differences in what the tax rate would do if it was split, and how it would impact the residential and commercial taxpayers if there was an increase or decrease. Do you want to review that, or would you like me to continue? Why don't you take it? Yep.
Well, thank you. Currently, if we were to adopt 1.25, shifting 25% over to the commercial, let's see what I have here. We anticipate the...
Can you speak a little louder into the
I'm
mic?
sorry. We would anticipate the residential rate, currently with a 1 factor, the residential rate we're estimating would be 9.38. That would be the mill rate per thousand. If we adopt a 25% shift to commercial, that would drop the residential rate down to 8.93. If we went with a 1.5 factor to commercial, the average tax bill with the 9.3 rate would be for the residential $2,385.
You have to speak a little. You're going to have to get up close and speak.
I'm sorry. The average tax bill with the current rate of 9.38 would be $2,385. If we shifted to a 1.25 factor, that would bring the residential tax bill down to $2,272. If we went with a 1.5 factor, that would bring it down to $2,196. Adversely, on the commercial side, with a 1.25 shift, with a 1 factor, the average tax bill is $5,855. With a 1.2 factor shift, that would increase the average bill to $7,671. With a 1.5 factor, it would bring the average bill to $87.82.
Gary prepared this, and I put him on the spot to present it because he had to prepare it for me.
I had no idea it was about this.
Yes, I know. I guess we could go to before we come back to this page, I have estimated a tax rate based on the proposed values and the proposed uncertified new growth, and that you'll find the figures on this larger sheet, which will make a lot more sense if I had lined them up that way. So we've estimated the levy based on last year's levy plus 2.5 plus a potential, hopefully certified $340,000 in growth. So that brings our estimated levy to $31,590,052, and if you divide that by our proposed values that are into the state, if you divide that, you come up to a .00938, and to do the math where we've estimated the new tax bills to be, the tax rate to be $9.38 for the town of Wareham. So it is an increase. In most cases that we reviewed, the values have gone down and offset it. Steve, did you have a question? Oh, you look like you were ready to ask. So these are all based on estimates. I believe that all of our values and all documentation that has been supported or sent in from the assessors to be approved within the next, hopefully, couple of days, but probably the next couple of weeks. The other thing I included here are your breakout of your proposed values on the LA4, only the town of Wareham. I've met with one of the districts, so you can have some idea of where we're headed with the classes and the different rates and the different dollars in each class. Also, personal property, we got a $15 million increase in personal property this year due to a settlement of the utility companies. My calculation for the estimated levy, I've never done so many estimates in my, hopefully this one will all have to get changed because a lot of it's already in. The final paper in your packet is one that we did to give to the Department of Revenue. They always ask us for the top 5 taxpayers in the town and to see the shifts and whom they are. And it turns, they all happen to be commercial. The first line is part of Wareham Crossing. The second part of Wareham Crossing is on its own target, runs its own tax line. But Wareham Crossing plus Target, just as an aside, I believe in the beginning when they were coming in here had promised to pay out nearly $1 million in taxes, and they have not yet reached $500,000. And if you can take these calculations, you'll see there are probably around $450,000 even with the new rate. So that's something to be aware of as promises are made by large divisions and subdivisions coming in, that we do need to take a better look at what they're promising and what we have in writing. Makepeace comes in here with their new project, which brought us up nicely
Chairman.
with...
Yes, Mr. Dole.
Could you stop and go back through that?
Yep.
Because I think
Which aspect?
that's important. The Wareham
Well,
Crossing piece.
The Wareham Crossing, I was discussing this, I believe, with, I guess, I don't want to be, there was someone who has the information from meetings that were held with Wareham Crossing when they were proposing the development here, and there were promises that we would realize, the town would realize close to $1 million in revenue from them in taxes. And looking back over the past 3 years, we haven't realized even $500,000. So my point, may it be out of this scenario, it is something I feel that should be commented on as an assessor, because we aren't often asked to be joined with things that are being talked about in town, in that we need to take a better look at what our growth is, and if the factors and the figures put in front of us are realistic. Now, they haven't ever reached $500,000 in revenue in tax dollars to the town.
Yes, Mr.
Thank you. Also, on Wareham Crossing, I just had a quick question. Is it because the income and expense reports capitalized out just aren't showing the rental levels there to support a higher value, or why is it about half of what they promised?
I don't know why they promised $1 million, but the reason that the value is what it is not on income. It is on, Vision does the larger commercial properties like this from a cost basis. Their income report that they submitted was significantly lower than market rents. And that was noted to me as that they are giving heavy discounts in rents, which are pulling your other businesses away from other places and bringing them up there. But on the income approach, it did also come in much lower than what was originally projected. So either one, the cost and the income actually come very close. I don't think I directly answered your question. Their rents are apparently, based on what they gave us, they're heavily discounted. And they are less than what your typical market rent is for your established businesses here in town. So they have pulled business away, but haven't really assisted in any tax base.
Mrs. Winslow?
Mr. Chair, I paid really close attention to the Wareham crossing. I'm not sure that the promise was $1 million a year in property taxes. Just,
Okay.
we'd have to go back and really look at
Yeah.
what was actually
I would be
promised.
interested in that.
But in addition to that, back when those discussions were taking place, the economy was booming. I mean, you couldn't build enough retail space, and you couldn't build enough parking spaces for people to shop and spend all the money that they had. You know, they were borrowing, you know, their homes were a bank, and times were much different. And the retail world has changed significantly over the past 6 or 7 years. And when Wareham Crossing first opened, and it was like 2007, I think, when Target, or early 2008 when Target opened, the leases even then were, you know, they were very high. I mean, I can remember talking to a friend who was looking at space over there, and they have had to really significantly come down in their rent because, if you notice, a number of those spaces have never been occupied, and some of them have been occupied for a short time, or they had the big borders that then went out, and so I just want to make sure that we get clarification on exactly what promises were made. There also was an agreement about them giving the town certain dollars over a period of time to be used for different purposes, and that may have been included in their numbers. I just want to make sure the public understands that.
I don't think Wareham Crossing was a bad thing. When I was told, though, when this reduced, and Gary and I redid the numbers on Wareham Crossing after the vendor was done because it had decreased by close to 20%, drop in a year, $10 million drop, and I thought, yeah. So we went back in and re-reviewed it because I was told that they, you know, there was a tax implication of close to that. They have had a very good occupancy rate there, but they are discounting their space to, there's one at 10 cents a square foot. Is it Lowe's? How much? $1? Oh, I can't. That's true. Okay, well, that was my only comment there. Is I hear some of these newer projects that when they get proposed, I think that as taxpayers we need to look better at what they are actually proposing and what we can actually gain in revenue from them. So these are your top 5 with your changes. This does not include personal property or your utilities.
I just have one more. I have
Yeah.
kind of a question still on this issue. First of all, am I understanding you correctly when you're saying, Elsa, that there's 2 components to the target to this particular
actually
business's
3.
taxes? 3
Yeah.
components. So we have the tax agreement, which is based on the rent roll. Is that correct?
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I think
he's
Mrs.
misunderstood
Stein, I
me.
think you understand that the 3 components of Wareham Plaza is that plaza is not one property.
Mhm.
It's separated into 3 sections. So that's when she's talking about 3 components. There's
Okay.
3 groupings of buildings or 3 separate tax attachments that's to that. Basically, we can only assess for value. If there was any type of agreement with the town or proposed,
Right.
paying of taxes, that doesn't factor into our valuation. We strictly just do the valuation of the property at full and fair market value, which comes down to a combination of construction cost to build it and also the income approach to come up with a valuation on the combination.
The 3 are Target, which is line items separately. The other 2 are the primary Wareham Crossing and Lowe's. Lowe's and Wareham Properties are 1. So those are the 3 components of what we call Wareham Crossing.
Okay. So in respect to the issue of we're not realizing the revenue from Target that's
Well, from the whole project.
from the whole project.
They just happen to have broken out, I don't know why, into that parcelage. But for
Right.
some reason, we line item Target Corporation separately. It's the same revenue. It has nothing to do with the revenue. It wouldn't change the revenue if they were added in on the first line.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking the question is because I'm familiar with commercial leases where the
Yes.
tax rate is based on a rent roll, and I'm just trying to get to a place where I kind of have an idea of why there would be a difference, that's such a dramatic difference between what was supposedly proposed to be paid in taxes versus what we're actually receiving.
Winslow said we need to clarify that. I was given that by another department head as what we were anticipating, and he was surprised to see the decreases. I was given that information by another department head who was, I guess, part of when Wareham Crossing was coming in. So I guess we need to take that apart and better understand it before we go any further. As Ms. Winslow said, we don't know how that $1 million may have been made up.
When you do find those documents, would you mind CCing the board?
I don't know who would have them. Whoever negotiated with Wareham Crossing.
Any?
That was a while ago, but I would be glad to look into that.
Yeah. Can we check with the appropriate departments, Mr. Andrews?
On the bottom of this page will show your decreases in each of the classes, and there is an overall decrease in residential values, as you can see on the Class 101, but they're really for overall in Massachusetts, and for the makeup and difference in this community on the South Coast, your values have held very well. So there are communities around that have decreased into the 8, 9s, and 10s, and you're really at a 4% in the residential classes. So on these proposed values, and on the basis of the percentage breakout of residential to commercial in the town, which is on a factor sheet that you have, the board has discussed it, and we recommend a single rate or rate of 1. That the split rate would not be favorable to bring in new businesses, and it's a substantial shift, and it does not bring in more revenue. The revenue piece stays the same. It's just a shift in dollars. So that is the end. Or if there are questions. Well, I'm not, like I say, it's to work with so many estimated estimates of estimates. It's.
Any questions from the board?
Well,
which way are we going? Doesn't make any difference. Who wants to raise their hand? Mr. Snyder? Go ahead.
Well, until I heard what you had just said about this particular business, I was completely in favor of keeping the tax rate the same. Yeah. But it's given me food for thought. I think it's important that, particularly in this economy, I'm looking at the dollars here, and it's not a huge difference, or it doesn't make a tremendous amount of difference on the residential tax rate, but on the commercial side it makes a fairly big difference, and it concerns me, in this particular economic time, that we might consider adding additional costs or increases onto businesses. When we voted in Proposition 2.5, our tax base never goes down on the residential or commercial side. Is that correct?
Well, yes, it goes down.
But with the 2.5, in other words, although the value of the property may go down, we cannot never go below what the assessed value was from the previous year.
No, you have a misconception of what 2.5 is.
Okay. Well,
Proposition 2.5 means that what the money the town government spends they can only raise their budget 2.5% from the previous year. It has nothing to do with valuation of property. 2.5 is strictly on the budget. So basically, if you had a $100 budget, next year you can only spend $102.50. You can't raise that any more than that.
Right.
As the example, $2.50.
Right. No,
it has nothing to do with valuation of property.
I understand that. Thank you. But I guess what I'm saying to you is, although the value of a property may decrease, once the property has been, taxed at say $1,000, we can never, even though the value may go down, we can never decrease that tax value. Is that correct? So it would be $1,000 plus 2.5% if we were going to increase the tax rate.
No.
I think I understand what you're...
What is,
Yeah.
well, it's just the semantics of it. Now that I've totally confused you with Wareham Crossing.
No,
No, I know. Do you want me to go back and address your concern first with the split rate?
sure.
The thing on the split rate is, it is not good because with the commercial, I see where you see more dollars and cents that we could derive from the commercial, but what happens is that gets passed off to the tenants.
Mhm.
So you're going to lose tenancy rather than, it works actually in the opposite way, Mike, from what you would think. Okay, great, since we're not getting enough out of commercial, we'll increase theirs. Well, what it'll do is it'll lay it on a tenant, and a tenant will move out of town.
Mhm.
You won't be able to attract businesses.
Yeah, I think that's where I was going.
Yeah, you won't be able to attract businesses from that. But on the commercial, the residential assessments go up and down and up and down. The
Correct.
budget goes up and down, usually up. We can only capture out of the budget side. Our assessments are controlled by what the market does, and your budget's controlled by 2.5, and what growth there is in the town.
And I guess the point that I'm trying to get at is our tax bills as citizens, although our property values have decreased, will never go down.
In some case, this year there are property tax bills that will go down.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Our rate went up, but we ran a couple of scenarios. Go ahead.
What happens on that when you reevaluate the property? If your assessment goes down, okay, and the tax rate changes, it depends what the change in the assessment of the value is. If you have a $100,000 property, and say because in a down or very bad declining market, say their value drops to $80,000, but the tax rate only goes up maybe 10 cents. They could see a savings of $100 because of that change in their assessment. But then again, when the market booms and the values go back up, they will see a change in the taxes. Of course, as the value goes up and the tax rate, it has potential for going up. But depending on the market, depending on what the shift in the valuations are, a taxpayer could see a decline in their tax dollars, while another one may see an increase. It just depends on each individual property.
I understand.
Okay.
Mr. Winslow, you have anything?
I just want to say I think we talked about this at length last year, and attracting economic development, commercial development is key to the future success of the community. And unfortunately, while a split tax rate is tempting, it's not going to advance us in that goal at all. In fact, it tends to have the reverse effect. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on that.
Well, basically, right now, with the percentages that you have through, Mr. Chairman, to answer the question, roughly it's about a 16% commercial, 84% residential.
You have
With that split of the factor, you don't really gain as much tax dollars on your commercial versus if you were, say, a 75-25 split. Then you would see a lot more savings to the taxpayer, more burden on the commercial. But then again, you'd have a larger commercial base that would help support that. And Wareham is mostly comprised of smaller businesses, so they would be taking most of the hit, versus some people, if using Wareham Plaza as an example, as the giant box stores, they will see a larger bill, but the majority of our commercial base is small owner-occupied businesses, and they'd be suffering most out of their pocket than the larger commercial base would.
And most of those business owners live in the community as well.
Yes.
Correct, so they'll be getting two
So,
bills.
I guess my statement on what I said about Wareham Crossing and what we weren't realizing in tax dollars was misunderstood in what I meant. I am pro, and I think I came into the town saying that I was pro-development and pro-picking up new properties. But as I'm here and I see, particularly when we analyzed Wareham Crossing and some of the ones on Route 6 that are about maybe to change complexion there, is that I think that we need to look longer range as to how these will impact overall and what promises are being or could have been made up front for certain issues, and make sure that we get what we need from them before they move into our community. They are bringing us tax dollars, but I think that it just needs to be well vetted.
Mrs. Bagley?
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. I keep hearing all these words estimates, and I know that Mr. Curry was here last week. Is this somewhat late for a public hearing?
Yes.
When is it usually conducted?
As I explained last week, usually we're in before the board here the last week in November,
Okay.
or the last meeting of November going into December.
So this is at least 2 weeks late.
Yes.
That's it. So, there's a delay. We're unable to vote on the rate tonight. So, how is that going to impact us? How is this going to impact the town?
We're only one of the channels up to getting your finances in order to get a rate set. On my side, and my responsibilities as the Director of Assessment, I have completed my job until I get certification. I think, not to step back into muddy waters, but the contract was very late in being signed with Vision. The monies were not voted on. They started late. They ran into issues with hiring and people and staffing. You did not have an assessor here till June 22nd, and I walked into nothing having been picked up on permits. So we're not late due to anything that the board or I could do to rectify at the point we picked it up. I picked it up.
I understand. I think it was multiple factors.
And yes, it is. And it still is. And it isn't to do with the town. It has to be with the Department of Revenue being far more demanding than in any of the years I have worked with them.
Okay, but my question still stands. How does this impact the town? What's the next step? When can we vote on the tax rate?
Well, we're waiting for preliminary, and then he will go from there, I guess.
Yes. Basically, we're done with the valuation. Like you said, usually we have it November 28th. Then from there, we set the tax rate. Usually when we have the classification hearing, we've already had certification of values, and the town finances have been approved with the state. Like Elsa had mentioned, we did start late. We didn't have a director of assessment for almost 10 months. We didn't have an assistant for almost 4 months. So basically delayed. We had to pay a vendor to do our building permits because that position was vacant. Vision did start it. Usually it takes them 6 to 7 months to do their project. We squished it down into 5. And that's when Ms. Miller came in and worked with Vision. So they've done a pretty good job in 5 months for a 7-month project. All the values are at the state. They just have to approve it. Currently, there's approximately 140 towns in the state still waiting for their tax rate to be set. They haven't got their certification yet. And as I know the board knows, we did receive a letter back on April 6th stating the outlines that needed to be completed. I know the state is still waiting for some of those issues to be resolved, basically more on the financial part. That hasn't been cleared with the state yet. So even if our values were certified, there's still that second proponent about the finances. Knowing that we were starting late, the board had voted in August to do estimated bills if need be. The state did approve that if it was a value issue because we had a late start. But upon speaking with DOR, they're still waiting for certification, but they're still waiting on the financial aspect too. So even if we couldn't get value set, we couldn't set out an estimate because the finances are still waiting to be approved with the state. So basically right now it's in the state's hands and we just have to wait.
So you would have to come back to this board once you get the information from the state, or do we have to vote prior to that? Is there, am I missing a step?
Well, you could still vote on the ratification or sort of residential factor of 1 for the classification. You could still vote on that and approve the factor of 1. What we just need to do once the numbers are certified and the financials are certified, you would basically ratify your vote and just bring it back up. We have final numbers. We want to reconfirm our vote of a residential factor of 1 if you pick that versus the split. Because if there is any change in the valuation or any questions that might change the valuation or any questions that might change the financials, your tax rate might change. So it could be even a penny. If it's $9.38 now, they certify the numbers, and now becomes $9.37. You have to come back and revote that factor because that number has changed. So now basically it's the waiting game, waiting for the state to say this is good, this is good, this is what you got, go forward.
We have gotten permission, which I requested early on from Brenda Cameron, to go ahead and keep the assessor's side of it rolling. So we had hearings, we had classification, we did public disclosure. All of this has been pre-done so that we wouldn't have to wait 2 weeks to get it in the newspaper, which I found out can be difficult here to get one in there on time to get it out. I have to meet with Wareham Fire, I've met with Onset. But on the recap side, as of today, Justin,
Justin Cole.
Justin Cole has started to enter in the recap. I've talked with him several times. Most of my data is in there, but it still, when I enter new growth, which is vital to your formulas here, it still has to be certified. So there's a whole financial side of this that is a little lagging even behind the assessing side that still needs to be. You have an audit meeting tomorrow, and then things can move forward from there on your side, I believe. It has to be the accounting side has to be certified before I can do my side. I'm the last one to roll in.
I understand. So as of January 1st, what happens? January 1st is usually when it's certified. Is that correct?
It should have been certified a while ago. I'm used to getting certifications in October and on a reval in November.
Okay.
But the accounting side, I don't know the history of when you're used to getting it certified.
Now, moving forward, my question is this. Is there, I know that there are certain dates for the state to get the information. Are there internal policies and procedures in your department that, whether there was a director of assessment or an assistant or whatever, that there is a mechanism so that this process would not be delayed? Do you understand what I'm saying? So if there's a policy and procedure that people that this has to be accomplished by this date, this has to be accomplished by this date, well ahead of what the state needs, or is this something that you would kind of work on moving forward?
The state controls how I move at this point.
You misunderstand me.
Yeah, I think I do.
I think if something's due...
I think I know the answer to your question. To answer the question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The state usually sets a specific dates when information is to be in to the state so they can start processing. Gives them time to review all the figures and the numbers and moving forward versus everybody, 361 towns, dumping it on the state store on November 1st and says, give me my tax rate. Usually the sales reports or where we have the Hopkins bill, building permits done by July 1st. The sales analysis, I believe, they like to see, I believe, the sales analysis by September. So the state comes in, starts reviewing by October 1st. And then, but each town's different depending on the size of the town, how much information they have. Some will get it in early, some will get it in late. Usually with the state, the financials, they require or like to see the financials in by November 1st. That way it gives them a few months to go through them and compare them with the figures. So usually by the end of November on most towns, the values are set, the financials are usually set, and then we can go for the tax rate. And then it usually gives the collectors, whether they do them in-house or bill them out to outside vendors, 1 to 2 weeks to get the bills out, which is usually a 2-week period.
Okay, that doesn't really answer my question. One second.
That's not what she asked,
Okay.
Steve.
Right. What I asked is there an internal mechanism? Say that you have to have, I don't care what they are, you have to have the valuation of dog houses by October 15th. So that there's a mechanism within your department that no matter who's missing, that there's a way, there's kind of like a policy and procedure to go by so that all of those numbers that you need, you have by, say, October 7th, so that you're well ahead of the deadline. But why not? I mean, I'm not saying, no, I'm not being accusatory. I'm just saying
Mrs.
moving
Begley.
forward.
Excuse me.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, for a second.
Excuse me. Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Begley has the floor. Let Mrs. Begley finish, and then we'll proceed. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if Mrs. Begley would let me comment, I may be able to answer her question.
Okay, I think I understand. Usually the person that sets these dates and does the work is the director and the assistant. That's their job throughout the year, to evaluate the property, do building permits, and do the new growth. Like you say, valuation of the dog-houses, valuation sheds, that's a year-long process. Each month, we get building permits, house sales, we do these analysis.
I understand.
That is done by the director and the assistant.
But in their
community.
absence, that's my point. For example, I'm in medicine, and it would be impossible for us to function if we could only function if one person was there. Do you understand what I'm
Yes.
saying? That person may be on vacation, that person may have a prolonged illness, there may be an emergency. We still have to function. So are there policies and procedures in place, or is there a plan to put them in place so that if what you may view as a key person is absent, that the work can still get done?
Yeah, on certain aspects there is. If a director or the assistant isn't in, there's deeds, things like that, are done by the office staff. Valuation is strictly done by the director and the assistant.
I understand what you're saying, Mr. Curry, that we didn't have a director and we didn't have an assistant. But I would hope that moving forward that there would be policies and procedures so that no matter what element was missing, we could still move forward and meet the state deadlines and not have a delay. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, that I believe would come down to the charter. The charter states the assessors to do the valuation. If someone was out for 2 months, I'm sure, I don't think there's anything in the charter to do that, but we would find a replacement for somebody to come in. That's why we had to use the Vision Company this year, because we didn't have anybody for a director for 10 months and both for 4 months. So we put a proposal out. Vision was the bidder, and Vision did our work this year. Usually, we've all done it in-house. We haven't used a vendor since 93, 94.
But I would be hopeful that if we had something in place so that this wouldn't recur. So we could have something in place that it could be just, instead of being reactive, we could be proactive, and that the process would go on no matter what element was missing.
I agree with you. There should be, and there is. If you are concerned about the recap being signed in Gateway, it can be signed from anywhere, and I have permission to sign any other documents. Is that what you? Because we're not running behind.
No, I think I have the answer now. At last April meeting, we did put a proposal in the charter that if a vacancy occurred, that the job had to be posted within 30 days, and the vacancy filled so we could continue going.
That's a step. That's a step in the right direction, absolutely.
Mr. Holmes?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Elsa, don't backpedal up the river on that Wareham Crossing piece. Because here's why. Because these folks, and we have others that have come in this room in my year and 3 quarters here, and have promised the world, if you let us build our coffee cup, you're going to get $1 million. And you know, we don't have any way of really knowing that, right? Planning does their work, zoning does some work, but so it's really nice that you pointed that out, and I'd like to see some others who have come before us and said we were going to get all this money. So don't backpedal there, because that's an important issue for this board and other boards. I'm sure the board who sat here when that was voted in would love to know that, because they think they signed something and approved something that was going to get the town $1 million a year. Taxpayers hear that and they say, well, Wareham Crossing gives us $1 million a year. What are you doing with the money? When fact is, we're not getting that money from them. So please don't do that.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
But I would like to talk about Mrs. Begley's point, because I think that it is important, because on the previous board to this board, this all happened before this board was seated. I can remember back in January of this year talking about vision, and we needed to get the money approved for vision. I think it was $52,000 or $54,000,
100.
and they were not going to start that work until they had promise of money. And the town administrator or the Board of Selectmen, didn't matter what we said, because that had to be approved by town meeting. And that company was not going to start the work until after that vote was taken at town meeting. And then town meeting got delayed, I believe, so we lost time there as well. That's one aspect. So there's no policy that can fix that part. But the second part of Mrs. Begley's question is where I was heading, and again, we go back to January of this year, and I'm not going to repeat my whole story and make people sick. But in February, in the end of January, February, I believe we posted the assessor's position. I sat through 3 days of interviews in end of February, beginning of March, and you were one of the lucky people that we got to speak with at that time. And then almost 2 months went by, and nothing out of the town to offer the job to anybody.
I never received a letter of any kind.
Correct. So when we look at the timelines, and Mrs. Begley, one of my big issues was the $54,000. And why should we have to spend that? We've never really had to do that until this year, because we didn't. You have to.
It was worse. It was $152,000.
Oh, is that what it was at Tommy? Maybe I'm thinking another one. But I do recall the delay because we had to approve that. But that position and the assistant's position are the qualified people. We usually do that all in-house.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what we tried to do to get those positions filled, they weren't filled. So I'm not going to go through the long story again, but I'm hoping that we never have to see this. In the town meeting vote to replace the assessor or post the position will certainly shorten that time up, because I think that's been going on since maybe last November. My dates are all off. But so my question is, and it's the same question I asked you last week. We're now sitting here on December 13th, and the only important question in this room is, will the tax bills go out to the taxpayers postmarked December 31st, 2011?
No way of
Does anybody have an answer to that?
No, absolutely no way of knowing at this time. There are two passages we're going up now. I'm waiting for certification.
Got it.
And we're waiting for the financials.
Got it. Well, we
The
talked a little bit
financials
about
have
this.
to go in and get certified after me. It's all because of its timeline going in. When the first date was set for the Department of Revenue was not to come to town until November 2nd. So they didn't start with assessing until November 2nd.
Got it.
At that time, she told me, don't expect anything until after December 13th. And I notified, not even preliminary. She felt it wouldn't even get finished review. And as of today, we've been reviewed and are going up the ladder. We don't have preliminary. At that time, people were notified that this was going to be a serious delay. And we in the board with forethought there, went ahead and voted that we could get out the estimated bills. So,
But to clarify that, you have no authority to give out estimated bills. Only the DOR can allow that.
right.
And
they
they're only
approved it.
allowing that in the case the valuation is delayed. Has nothing to do with town finances or reports, because that's another issue altogether.
That's going up the other way.
As I recall, we had a list of things to do from the Department of Revenue, and the list was pretty extensive. And if all those items were not in, we weren't even going to be allowed to ask the question.
Correct. That's what the letter from Department of Revenue stated.
That's correct. So, that'll be another story for tomorrow night.
Right.
But, Mr. Curry, last week when you were here, or the week before, you said that if we didn't get the bills out postmarked by December 31st, that taxpayers would have until May to make their payments.
No, if the bills go out, to answer the question, Mr.
Yeah,
Seaman,
please.
the state law says that all bills on quarterly bills have to be postmarked prior to January 1st.
Right.
Which means they have to be paid and due within 30 days. If a bill goes out postmarked after January 1st, then basically the taxpayer doesn't have to pay them till May 31st. So basically the bill went out late, they're not bound by the 30-day payment. They basically don't have to pay it to the fourth quarter bill, which usually goes out April 1st, due May 31st.
So what I just said then is correct. That if I got a bill on January 5th, I wouldn't have to pay it until May.
Now, if you received it on the 5th,
I would
but
have
it was
until May to pay it.
If it was postmarked in December, you'd have to pay it.
Right.
If it was postmarked after the 1st of the year, technically you could hang on to your money for 4 months and pay it in May.
Which would be pretty devastating if that happens.
For the homeowner, no, but for the town, yes.
Well, I'm talking about the town.
Yeah,
Right.
it wouldn't be good for the town, but a lot of it is billed out, and we would have to check with the treasurer, John. A lot of it is automatically coming through escrows from banks. So they somehow get to they will sometimes automatically send it in. No, we're not in a good situation.
Okay, Elsa, I just want to, what do we need to do tonight in this board to facilitate anything that's going to come up that we can get it on time? Because we can be talking this all night.
I know.
What we need to do is, what's the best thing for us to do?
It's in
We
this.
need to
It's in
go
the.
with what you had suggested with the one single rate.
To vote on the residential factor of 1 is one of the steps that has to be processed. That'll take one more thing off the list.
Right.
But technically, right now, it's sitting in DOR's hands, and basically, it's just DOR when they get
No
around.
matter what we vote on, it's still in DOR's hand.
Yeah.
Correct.
We don't want it to come back, and we still have to come back here to do something that could already be facilitated now.
Basically,
Or
what you just
close
need
to
to
it.
do to answer. I'm sorry, Elsa, to answer the question. We both have the answers. You can take your vote now for the residential factor of 1, which means you're going to put a single tax rate, not a split rate, but a single tax rate, which means all properties are assessed the same rate for residential and commercial. And then once the values are certified, you just have to take a ratification vote to reconfirm that's what you're still going to do. But this will take one more checklist off that list by voting a residential factor of 1, if that's what you wish.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that this board approve a residential tax rate of a factor of 1. That's what we need to do, correct?
Yeah, residential factor of 1, correct.
Okay.
Motion made by Mrs. Winslow, residential factor of 1. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Begley. Discussion? Do we need to continue discussion?
Mr. Chair, I understand that this, that there have been a number of delays and that everybody has a great deal of concerns about the process this year. However, I do think that the policies should be reviewed so that we don't have a similar issue. But the purpose of the hearing tonight is simply to determine whether we're going to have a single or a split tax rate. So,
May I ask a question, Mr. Cruz?
Yes,
This is a public hearing.
it is.
So prior to a motion or a vote,
We need to open up to the public.
we need to open it to the public, close the public hearing, then make the motion and vote. Is that true?
Yes, it is.
So I withdraw my second.
I'll withdraw my motion.
And, excuse me, but secondly, you need to hold this portion open till you sign the paperwork.
The public hearing?
This part of the public hearing, Brenda Cameron said, needs to be held open. You with me, Mr. Bowen? We held it, I've done it, and you just hold this, your vote, you can't sign. Your signature is going to be, we can close it and reopen it. All it is a signature. This is the direction that came
Well,
down and that
all we're
I've
gonna-
used in
excuse
other
me.
towns.
All we're going to do right now is get the public's viewpoint. Okay. Do we have any questions from the public? Sounds like a winner to me.
I make a motion to close the public portion of the hearing.
Wait up, hold it. From
Mr. Chairman,
Clifford.
respectfully, may I suggest a motion, something like this? I move to continue the public hearing until a certain date, period.
We don't have a certain date.
Uh,
Until they're ready for it.
Yeah.
I make a motion to continue this public hearing until such time as the assessors have a certified valuation for the board, for the board's final consideration.
Second.
I'm
Motion
sorry,
made.
Steve. I'm sorry, you
Go
didn't
ahead.
finish it.
Motion made by Steve to continue the public hearing to an unspecified date. And I heard two at the same time. Mike? Any questions? Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one comment. I think I sat in on the second round of interviews, in which Elsa was interviewed, I believe, a second time.
Yep.
We weren't hired in the initial round, and I think I made the comment at that time that I wish we'd hired her a month earlier, and this is exactly why I was concerned about it. And I just want to say,
Well, thank you, because you're one of the few that apparently wanted me.
and I appreciate the work that you've done, Elsa. And
It's been well told.
but I just wanted people to be aware that, you know, the process didn't necessarily wasn't lagged because it was a lack of a process. It was that, you know, for whatever reason, at that juncture, no one was hired, and it went out for a second round of interviews.
Steve, this actually puts us ahead with getting this, and I'm sorry that you have to come back to sign it, but it saves almost 2 weeks in advertising time. If I got certified, I'd have to post for 2 weeks to get here, or 1 week, to get here to ask you to vote. Pardon me? She allowed 1 week. Brenda Cameron gave us permission to go for 1 week for classification. For this.
There's a
No,
motion.
this isn't
There's a
what it
motion.
says.
It's still a question. If there aren't any more questions, the motion's on the floor to continue to undetermined time. Steve?
To continue until the assessors have a certified valuation for the board's final.
Right, so there's no specific date until they get...
Mr. Holmes, to actually set the rate, it's a combination of the financials and the valuation. Because one
Oh, is that-
divides into the other to get a rate.
It's okay.
If not, go ahead.
Until the assessors notify you that they're ready to return.
I don't know.
Okay, motion was made by Steve, second by Mike, still stands. Questions over? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Do we have, we didn't vote on the factor. You needed that tonight.
That's what I thought you just voted
No,
on.
No,
we
that
just
was
voted
voted
on
to continue the hearing.
continuing.
Voted to continue. You can
Yeah.
vote on the factor of 1, and then just sign the paperwork if the values don't change.
We need-
It's, you guys, I
Probably
know
best
that
to
you
do
can
it.
take your vote tonight.
Probably best to do it all at once, don't
That's
you think?
fine, whatever you want to do.
You want to make a motion on the factor one?
I can, but we're just going to have to redo it when we...
Well, letting me have that factor of 1, I can continue to go on in my recap. It's a matter of time. It's unfortunate. If the numbers change, you can vote it out or not agree with it. The numbers are not going to change.
Mr. Snyder?
I move, Mr. Chairman, to set the tax rate at a factor of 1.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Snyder, second by Mrs. Winslow. Question? None? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Thank you, Elsa.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Right. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, on the agenda, we're going to move up.
Have a nice
Sure.
holiday, guys.
Oh, well, we'll be right here.
We have some young folks in the audience that probably need to go home a little earlier, so
It's a school night.
Mr. Clerk?
The Wareham Code Club, if you'd all come up. This is a proclamation to the Wareham Code Club. Whereas the Wareham Can we close that door, please? Have a little quiet. Thank you. So, proclamation to the Wareham Code Club. Whereas the Wareham Code Club excelled at planning a volunteer cleanup day on Saturday, October 22nd, 2011, at Shangri-La Park. Whereas the Wareham Code Club dedicated their time to undertake a coordinated effort with Wareham Municipal Maintenance to clean park area, clean brush, sweep and paint assets at Shangri-La Park. Whereas the Wareham Code Club, including Cameron Bancroft, Brittany St. Germain, Deanna Carso, Ryan Swansea, Danielle Michelli, Nicole Beal, Courtney Conley, Jamie McCann, and Ashley Atkinson devoted their time and completed a fall cleanup in Wareham's bright side. And whereas the hard work and student efforts of the Wareham Code Club have had a lasting positive and proactive impact on our Shangri-La neighborhood and the community of Wareham, in witness thereof, we, the Board of Selectmen, have underto set our hand and cause the official seal of the town of Wareham to be affixed this 15th day of November 2011. Signed, Town of Wareham, Walter B. Cruz, Chairman, Stephen M. Holmes, Clerk, Kara A. Winslow, Ellen M. Begley, and J. Michael Schneider. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add one thing to that. I was very impressed with the level of support from teachers at the high school that worked very hard to bring this group together. I worked with Selectwoman Winslow on Shangri-La Park for some time, and a lot of paint, a lot of buffing. The question I had that morning is whether they drank coffee. I brought coffee and donuts. All the donuts went, but they weren't drinking too much coffee. But it's part of our new effort, Mr. Chairman, Wareham's Bright Side. I want to thank the Code Club for their hard work. Thank you.
Now get home and do your homework. All right, we're going back to where we left off on.
Captain Else.
Remake the.
Mr. Chair.
I'll remake the motion to the way I made it, and then if it works, it works. If it doesn't, we'll see. I would request that the board contact Alfred Harrington, manager of Captain Al's, to come and meet with the board on January 17th to discuss this long closure at his establishment.
I'll second for discussion.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara.
I believe I have to excuse myself for 5 minutes, but I believe we were going to hear Mr. Bowen's
Unvarnished thoughts.
Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and Ms. Winslow, members of the board, thank you. I've been through the policies that you have. In fact, I wrote some of them maybe about 20 years ago. But times have moved on in 20 years. When you have places that are sending you emails saying that they're closed, mind you, not coming in and asking permission, that's a problem. When you have places that never open up, that's a problem. If somebody is not going to open up, they should be coming before you and saying, please may we have permission to remain closed for a longer period because of, then insert explanation. They make their pitch to you. and if it's reasonable, the board says, okay, fine, stay closed another 6 months. Why don't you come back on July 1st or, whatever the meeting is, and tell us how you're doing. If someone needs to close for renovation, in 5 or 6 months, that's a whole lot of renovating. It's more proper for them to come to you and say, we're asking your permission to close up for a period of time. Here's why. What do you think? Do we have your permission? In an ideal world, that's the way it should be done. The question I have for the board, and I have my own answer, but I'm going to keep my answer to myself, is that the way? Have your policies been followed? Have you been consistent in the application of your policies? And I think that's something that you have to find for yourselves between now and the time that you bring these couple people so far, and I suspect some others you'll be bringing in to have discussions with them. Find out if your policies have been followed consistently. And depending on what you hear, you might well decide that you want to do things in a different way. For you have, as a licensing board, and I speak as a former licensing board member and somebody who's defended licensing cases all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, you have an incredible amount of discretion to handle these things the way you want to do. If you called up Bill Kelly at the ABCC, the general counsel, and said, hey, Bill, can we let Captain Al, and I don't mean to pick on Captain Al, but can we let Captain Al remain closed for 6 months? Bill Kelly would tell you that's your discretion. If Captain Al gives you a good reason for it, you can do that. And as part of your discretion, you take into account the fact that this is a seasonal community. I was chairman of a licensing board in a seasonal community, and I'm sorry if I'm straying into policy here, but it doesn't make sense as a policy matter to make businesses stay open in the dead of winter where the proprietor could probably lay down in the street outside the business and wouldn't get run over by a car. So, when you have to consider the type of community you have. You have a regulation that says open all hours unless otherwise permitted. Well, have you followed that policy? My recommendation to you is, and I've written a policy which, is making its way out to the board members, is that you take a look at the policy that I'm suggesting, hold a hearing to consider whether this policy that I'm suggesting or some variation on the policy is workable. Send a certified letter to all the license holders saying, we're holding this hearing, you be there, because if you send them that and you keep the green cards, they're never going to be able to make the excuse, oh, I didn't know about these regulations. You've got the green card right in the file that says that they were there. They can come in, they can look at the regulations, they can offer comments on them. I mean, not everything that I've written probably is going to work for you, but I think a lot of it will. And then vote a new set of regulations, throw out the old ones, and come up with something that everybody knows about and is going to be applied consistently across the board. Because, to be honest with you, and you'll have to discover this for yourself, I don't think that's what you've got. That's my unvarnished opinion.
Mrs. Big?
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Mr. Bowen, here's the thing, though. We do have seasonal licenses. And some of the people that have the year-round licenses were holders of seasonal licenses and requested a year-round license. We are limited as to the number of year-round licenses we have. I don't think that we're limited for seasonal. Am I correct? Well, here's the thing. Right now, I'm not sure if we have a waiting list. I doubt it. I mean, we did prior to getting the 8 additional licenses.
I'm told you don't, but
Having a waiting list, correct. So we have we have people that have been license holders for some years, and given the nature of we're an elected board, there has been some inconsistencies. And I don't think that, I personally am trying to enforce the policy. And I don't think that, to me, I don't really care if previous boards enforced it or not. Right now, what I'm saying is, this is the policy of the board, and I want to see us enforce the policies. I'm certainly open to conversations with any business owner in this town, and I'm certainly willing to look at any of the regulations or policies that you've crafted. But I think that anyone that applies for a license, I would hope, is educated as to what the policy is in this town for being a license holder.
With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I don't disagree with anything that you say. You know, right from the beginning, I said this board has the discretion to handle this in the manner that it wants. Now, it's unusual for me to offer my personal opinion on policy because you'd be surprised how often my personal opinion on policy might disagree with what it is you want me to do. And I don't say that in a backhanded way. It's, you know, my job is to carry out the policy that you adopt. So you can absolutely hold people to the letter of the law if you wish. But I think what you need to do is decide whether you want to do that. I think you ought to take the time to investigate, and I know you would, and I don't mean to suggest that you take it flippantly, but, you know, discuss with staff how these things have been handled in the past and if they've been handled consistently, and then, you know, bring these people in as you're suggesting and talk to them. I mean, the status conference, I think, is one of your most powerful tools. You can bring somebody in who, you know, is closed, and I don't want to identify anyone in particular, and say, look, you know, why aren't you open? And if you're not satisfied with their explanation, or if they promise you that they're going to be open by a particular date, you can drop the hammer on them and say, okay, you say you're going to be open on May 31st, fine. We're scheduling, you know, I move to schedule a show cause hearing for June 1st. And if they're not ready, you're ready to go. I mean, there are a lot of things you can do. But please keep in mind that the ABCC on any appeal is going to be mindful of how you've treated comparably situated businesses. And that's very important. One of the first cases I ever did in front of the ABCC many years ago was in front of a fellow named George McCarthy, who was chairman in the mid-'80s. And what I remember Mr. McCarthy lecturing me when I was a young pup and being very zealous. Yeah, I'll be quicker, Steve. Saying, the ABCC is not in the business of putting businesses out of business. And so that's their motto. So we kind of have to keep that in our mind.
Well, Attorney Bowen, I don't mean to suggest, I certainly am not suggesting putting the hammer down. I'm not suggesting being unreasonable with these policies. But I really want to have a conversation with a business owner. So maybe I was premature in suggesting a show cause hearing. However, I think that the conversation, in my mind, is necessary.
I agree.
And it may be that I don't want to speculate what the outcome of that conversation will be. But I think there's definitely a lack of communication, and it certainly can be improved upon.
Absolutely.
So if your policy that you're suggesting can improve the communication between the business owners and the licensing authority, then I'm all for that.
I agree with everything you said.
Mr. Chairman.
Any more questions, or else we'll put it to a vote? Right now, we have a motion on the floor.
I just have a
Okay, go ahead.
I just have a comment, Mr. Chairman, and that basically is, Selectman Begley, I think you stated your points very well. I think your concerns are shared by myself as well, and I won't go into a rehash of all the issues, but I absolutely agree with you, and whatever the process is, you know, I think Mr. Attorney Bowen is being his very judicious. But there are issues, and they are going to relate to a lot of these, or at least a couple more of these applications on the list. And I just wanted to comment that I share your concerns, and I think that we need to take the next steps, and we need to make sure that we're complying with the consistent policy.
Okay, the next step is, as was suggested by the attorney, we approve the license, and we have a hearing, or a meeting. So, right, we approve the license one at a time. We're going to go right now, the motion is for Mr. Harrington to come in on the 17th.
For
All in
status
favor?
conference.
All in favor?
Status conference?
A meeting.
A meeting, right.
With the Board of Selectmen to explain the update on the closure.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Okay. Next up,
20.
Mrs. Winslow. Would you hold Palmer's? Oh. Either one.
My concern is that there is a sign up with a new name on the restaurant. So I believe that that would simply be, they would need to come before us for that, correct?
Yeah, that's, with your permission, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, that's a clear violation. If you're going to alter the name of your business, you have to file an application for modification of license. There are a lot of good reasons for that, a lot of them having to do with creditors. So, you know, you can certainly act to renew this if you like, but someone ought to suggest to them that they get an application for change of description of license in post haste.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Baker.
I asked Mr. Andrews today because I had heard a rumor that this particular business was closed, and it was confirmed that this business closed 1 month ago and has not turned in its license. Is that correct, Mr. Andrews?
Mr. Chairman, through you, my understanding is that they were given the proper paperwork and did not return the paperwork after we instructed them about the change.
With your permission, Mr. Chairman, they didn't file a renewal application? They did or did not? I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
Well, if they're on the list, they must have filed, I hope. I hope we're not putting people up for renewal that haven't even filed.
It's in the box.
Paperwork?
Yeah, got
Yeah.
it. Right? Yeah, it's in here.
Well, I have it. It's right here. So they did. We're not voting on all these licenses tonight, entertainment licenses and stuff like that. There's nothing on the agenda for those. They did submit their paperwork for a renewal, and it says here that they paid with a check the fee.
Okay. So it's in front of you. You can renew it. Perhaps direct your staff to tell them to get themselves in and file the proper paperwork, and then you can hold a hearing on this application that they ought to be submitting. And I'd say if they don't submit an application, I'd mark up a show cause hearing on that and deal with it.
Because the first of the year is only a few weeks away, so.
Sure.
So your advice is, let me make sure I understand this, is to issue the license
Yes, ma'am.
and then ask them to come in for a show cause hearing because the business is closed.
Well, I don't think it's a show cause. They got to have a modification, as you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Change of. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm,
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. But he's got to get that. He's got to get that application
Get
in.
in before the first of the year, Steve. He can't wait until the 17th.
well, we can renew the license
Right,
because
we
he
can renew
submitted
it.
the,
Same time tomorrow,
yep.
we call him up and have him come in.
I'm glad I came tonight.
Me too.
Well, I'd make a motion then that we renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage licenses for 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law for Welch Restaurant and Lounge, Inc., doing business as Palmer's, Brian Welch, manager, 2424 Cranberry Highway, Wareham.
Second.
Second by,
Mr.
motion by
Chairman,
Steve, second by Kara.
For discussion.
Discussion, Mike?
I'm looking at the paperwork, and some of the paperwork is unsigned. I'm not sure if the signatures are required ahead of time or not. One of them is the attestation of state that all state tax returns have been paid. And that's not, there's no signature on it.
But that would get kicked back from the ABCC, correct? Because that's what...
Okay, tax certification not signed. I certify under the pains and penalties of perjury that the above information is true and correct. There is a signature on that, so the application as to the existence of workers' compensation is in place. Corporate meeting minutes in place, workers' compensation rider policy is there. Application for renewal. It is signed under the pains and penalties of perjury, and here's what the individual has signed under the pains and penalties of perjury. The renewed license will be of the same type for the same premises now licensed. The licensee has complied with all laws of the Commonwealth relating to taxes. That probably trumps that extra certification. Oh, and the premises are now open for business. If not, explain below.
Okay, if there aren't any more questions, motion by Steve, second by Kara to approve the license, and we'll do that, then we'll come up with something. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
4-1-0. Mr. Andrews, in the morning, will you make sure someone's contacted and they update?
Well,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, can I make a motion that Welch Restaurant and Lounge, Inc., doing business as Pomodoro's Restaurant and Lounge at 2424 Cranberry Highway, Wareham, Mass., manager Brian M. Welch, appear before the board on January 17th for a status conference?
Second.
Motion made by Kara, second by Mike, on them appearing on the 17th of January. Only problem with that is they'll already be open. They're open now. That's why we need to get that paperwork done as soon as possible, because without that, they're illegal.
Well, but if they open those doors without the proper licenses, then they're in violation,
Right, that's
and we can
obvious.
call them before us and pull their license. So maybe we should make a courtesy call and advise them of that.
That's, Mr. Andrews going to do that
Yeah.
in the AM.
But in the interim, if they don't file the appropriate paperwork before their status conference and they operate and serve liquor, then they're in violation of the state law, and that puts us in a position to...
Puts the police department in a position to close them.
That's correct.
Thank you.
The responsibility is theirs to do what they're supposed to do, not ours to do it for them.
Okay, a motion for the 17th. That could be a backup if we wanted.
I wouldn't send the police down to close them, though.
No.
I mean, it'd be simple as these people getting out with a paintbrush and painting the old name back up. But
The motion
Well,
made
and
by-
just to clarify my statement, I'm not sure I mean, it looks like that sign goes to that building, but who knows? There's a group of, so.
Yeah.
Right. Motion made by Kara, second by Mike, for the hearing on January 17th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
And the last two are 22 and 23, Mr. Schneider.
Right. I believe that these are two licenses that also have been issued but are not currently being used, both
That's
of these
correct.
issues. So I certainly understand where Mr. Bowen was going with his issue of, making sure that we follow policy. So I would respectfully ask that I would also make the motion on this particular issue, on this particular item, although I know that it was previously voted by the Wareham Board of Selectmen to issue these licenses, to have these folks come in for a status conference, so we know at what juncture these licenses will be used, if they're going to be used.
These,
Mi-
Mr. Chairman,
Excuse me, I
these
think-
two licenses,
A motion's been made before we have a discussion.
Oh.
That was a motion.
second with discussion.
Second for Steve.
These two licenses
Discussion.
were issued by the town to Rosebrook Place for their, I believe it's for the hotel and for a restaurant there. This was part of the jobs bill. So it was understood that when we issued these licenses, and I was here when we did that these places would not open because they were part of that legislative act. So they own the licenses.
Right. I'm not saying that they don't. I'm asking for them to come in for a conference just like the other.
Yeah, but
folks.
these buildings aren't even built yet.
I know. I'd like to know. I'd like to have a conference so we can determine exactly what the status is when it's going to be built.
Ah.
Well, they have a sign up there, 2012. So, but we can vote on it. You want us the 17th, same day?
17.
Mr. Chair,
That'll be 2012.
just you know, I don't want anybody to get. Granted, there are some licenses that we had some issues with. I don't have an issue. It's communication. That's what this is. Just I think a status conference is the perfect terminology, because then everybody's on the same page. Because I understand the jobs bill, Selectman Holmes, but it would just be nice to let everybody know what the status of the construction of these two establishments are and how long we're going to hold these licenses for. But as a just kind of reminder to this board, we need to vote on both of these
What was that
licenses.
again?
They were held. We haven't voted on them to renew them yet.
No, we haven't.
Well, I guess that when we issued these licenses, we were aware of the fact that this phase of the construction hadn't even begun and wasn't going to begin until at least the medical building was completed, which just happened earlier this year. And these licenses were part of an agreement, and we don't know who is going to be I mean, one of them's for the hotel.
Well, as of right now, we know that when we did issue it, it was on the premise that the conference center and the hotel was going to be built. And until that time, the license would be held by them for that property.
Right.
So right now, we can go ahead and renew it.
Well, there's another motion.
Come in like all the rest of them if you want to update it. We already know it. They already explained, but if you want to reconfirm.
Just have a status on the project. I don't know, there's no reason why any of the member of this board should have to speak for Rosebrook. I think they can come in and speak for
We're not
themselves.
speaking for Rosebrook. All we're saying is this is
Right,
what
absolutely.
They came
So-
in front of us and they asked us for the license because of the conference center and that. If you want confirmation on that, we can have them come back on the 17th.
Mhm.
But as you had mentioned earlier, are we going to vote to approve it?
Oh, I'm not saying that I think we should vote to renew the licenses. I'm not saying that we shouldn't. But having everyone, everyone here, everyone that's watching, to know what the status of the projects are and when they can anticipate these being used for this community.
Okay, the motion on the floor right now is for the hearing. We can do it backwards. Go ahead and vote for the hearing and then all in favor of the hearing?
Not a hearing,
Meeting.
status conference.
Status conference on the 17th or whenever.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
4-1-0. Now, we need a motion to approve. Approve it.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion that we renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholics beverage license for the year 2012 on the provisions of Chapter 138, Mass General Law. For Rosebrook Place Hospitality, doing businesses, Rosewood Place, Rosebrook Place Hospitality, 2476 Cranberry Highway, Wareham.
Second.
Second was
Mike.
Mike. Motion made and second. Made by Steve, second by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0. 5-0-0.
And I would make a motion to renew the following year-round common victual all alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 on the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law for Roseburg Place Hospitality LLC doing.
Second.
I haven't finished it yet. Let's wait till it gets quiet. Roseburg Place, doing business as Roseburg Place Hospitality Inn and Conference Center, 2472 Cranberry Highway, Wareham, Mass.
Second.
Motion
Second.
made. Second by Kim. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
Okay, and that takes care of round 2. Now, 3 is the year-round common victual and wine and malt beverages license 2012. I'm going to pick up on this.
Sure.
C1.
The renewal of the following year-round common victualler wines and malt beverage licenses for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws. I make a motion for Welch's Barnacle Bill, Inc., doing business as Barnacle Bills, Brian Welch, manager, 3126 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham.
Second.
And, Kara made the motion. Mike Schneider seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 400.
I make a motion to approve the renewal of the following year-round common victualler wines and malts beverages license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws. Mark Anthony's La Pizzeria, Ltd., doing business as Mark Anthony's, Mark A. Salerno, manager, 190 Onset Ave, Onset.
Second.
Have a motion made by Kara, second by Mike. Any questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained?
I make-
400.
I make a motion to renew the following year-round common victualler wines and malt beverage license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws. Tisca, Inc., doing business as Minerva's Pizza, Litza Kalkanis, manager, 257 Main Street, Wareham.
Second.
Have a motion made by Kara, second by Mike. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained. Next is the group, the year-round club alcoholic licenses, which we have a couple.
I make a motion to approve the renewal of the year-round club all-alcoholic beverages license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws for the Wareham Lodge of Elks, number 1548, Manuel J. Garcia, manager, at 2855 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham.
Second.
I have a motion made by Kara, second by Mike. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained?
I make a motion to approve the renewal of the following year-round club all-alcoholic beverages license for the year 2012 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws for Cromeset Tribe number 156, Improved Order of Redmond, Inc., Philip Gustafson, manager at 745 Main Street, Wareham.
Motion made by Kara.
Second.
Seconded by Mike Schneider. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 500. Mr. Cruz? Next, we have the renewal of the following year-round Veterans Club all-alcoholic beverages license for the year 2012 under the Chapter 138 of Massachusetts law. I move that we renew the following year-round Veterans Club all-alcoholic beverage license for the year 2012 under the Chapter 138 of Massachusetts General Law for American Legion, Post 220, 777 Main Street, Wareham, Mass.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
Make a motion that we renew the following year-round Veterans Club all-alcoholic beverages licenses for the year 2012 on the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law. WL Post 2846 VFW, 4 Gibbs Ballpark Road, Onset.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
Okay. Almost done. Now, as is, we have a couple of requests. New Year's this year is on New Year's Eve, I guess, is on a Saturday. So I would make a I make a motion that we approve the following applications, and I have 4 of them. I'll do them separately so it makes it easy. I approve the following applications of year-round liquor licensees to remain open until 2 a.m. on January 1st, 2012 for New Year's Eve parties to be held December 31st, 2011 under the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law. To GS Corporation doing business as Gateway Tavern, 371 Marion Road, Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Make a motion to approve the following application of a year-round liquor licensee to remain open until 2 a.m. on January 1st, 2012 for New Year's Eve party to be held December 31st, 2011 under the provisions of Chapter 138, Mass General Law. L&L Corp. doing business as Ella's Wood Burning Oven Restaurant, 3136 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Make a motion to approve the following application of a year-round liquor licensee to remain open until 2 a.m. on January 1st, 2012 for a New Year's Eve party to be held on December 31st under the provisions of Chapter 138 of Mass General Law. The Wareham Lodge of Elks, 2855 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
I make a motion to approve the following applications of a year-round liquor licensee to remain open until 2 a.m. on January 1st, 2012 for New Year's Eve parties to be held on December 31st, 2011 under the provisions of Chapter 138 Mass General Law. The Hong Kong Island Restaurant, 3035 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes our renewals. I want to thank everybody for quick responses. And if we could, again, while we're going through the rest of the meeting, if you wouldn't mind signing your name so that I can present these to the folks fully signed. Next, Mr. Chairman, you have your town administrator's report.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the listening audience and the audience here tonight, and I'll be very quick. I wanted to point out that on the 18th of November, I participated in the 6th grade class at the middle school. They had an essay contest, and they asked the town administrator some very interesting questions. There were 75 6th graders, and it was a very rewarding experience to participate in that, as well as the reading week at the Minot Forest School on Thursday, November 17th. I read to Mrs. Reynolds' class of 21 students and read the night before Thanksgiving and gave, hopefully, the students some encouragement to move on in education. On Thursday, the 17th, Chairman Cruz and I attended the Bank 5 Hometown Heroes Award, where this was an award that was given at Damien's Pantry. Chairman Cruz presented Rosemary Lackey, who is the awardee this year, with a proclamation from the Board of Selectmen, and it was a moving experience. It was attended by volunteers, bank executives, and neighborhood leaders throughout the town. On Thursday the 17th, I also met with Mr. Mark Terrell of the Cape Cod Canal Centennial Celebration Committee. That committee has been working very hard to celebrate the 100th celebration of the canal. And he came up and met with me and updated me on their planning, and we have designees to that committee, including Gary Buckminster, our harbor master, and Jackie Lindsay from the Wareham Village Association. On status report on ongoing issues, I have been in touch with Senator Pacheco on Article 48. I have nothing to report new at this particular point, and also working together with the chairman and the entire board. And together we will work as one unit. On town hall virtualization, I have a report from Mr. Matt Underhill indicating that we have been moving forward, and they're looking to cut over some of the equipment from the police department to town hall. They're working very closely with our state certified vendors and the police department staff, Mr. Stephen Rogers. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Questions from the board? Seeing no hands?
Mr. Chairman, next you have the Town Administrator's 2013 message on operating budget and capital plan.
Yeah, town business. That's next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, on town business, I intend to file per the charter, Article 5, by Thursday the 15th, the operating starting point budget for the town, as well as the capital plan for the town, and a budget message that you will get on Thursday afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next is the discussion, 7 Nichols Drive. I think there's some folks here to talk about that.
7 Nichols Drive, would you?
Yeah, why don't you come right up?
Come forward.
State your name for the record, and whatever you do, say how close I am here. That's what you want to do right there, okay?
We've signed those.
My name is Jill Sheridan Hamlet, and I'm the property owner at 7 Nicholas Drive. I think you have the details of the case. Do you want me to present the timeline of an overview of what's going on? Or do you already have enough information?
Good. If you want to give us a brief on it, go ahead.
Okay. In February of 2011, we put our 40B affordable unit up for sale. Between then and now, we have not had any offers on the house, and I'm just going to get my timeline out. It was in March of 2011 that we contracted a realtor to help us sell the house as an affordable. The problem we keep running into is that the affordable resale value is greater than the actual market value of the house. So we're having a lot of difficulty selling it as an affordable for that reason. So in May 18th of 2011, the 90-day period to sell the unit as an affordable expired in per terms of our deed restriction, which I have a hard copy if you do not, that details that. It expired, and then we could go to open market and sell it free and clear of the restriction. October 23rd of 2011, we got an offer on the house, but the offer had the stipulation that we lift the deed restriction, which we believe is legal to do. We spoke with, our realtor is Susan Rickey, who she's also here tonight. I got a license. Chapper is the monitoring agent of the unit, and they govern most of the affordables, I think, in this area. They've approved the sale. They approved the appraisal that we had to do on our own. Well, we had a licensed appraiser come in. So Vin DeSangro from Southeast Appraisal did that, and he came up with a fair market value of $165,000, which I have that appraisal report also. So basically what we need the town to do, what we're asking, is that the deed restriction be lifted so that we can move.
Any questions from the board? Okay, Mrs. Winslow.
Thank you. What is the, what was determined to be the affordable price on the unit?
The affordable resale max was $175,600, and the fair market value came in at $165,000. We have houses in my neighborhood selling in the 120s, so it's tough. And I think a lot of the 40B units are running into this now, and that the affordables aren't selling like they used to because of the fact that the market dropped. And we have family issues. My mother's terminally ill, and we're trying to move so that we can get closer to her area. We've been trying to do that for a good 11 months now, and this is the first offer we've had on the house as an affordable, or any offer at all, whether it's affordable or not. So we're asking that we're allowed to accept the offer, free and clear of the deed restriction, per terms of the deed rider.
Mr. Snyder.
Mr. Chairman, it is a sad day when we can't sell a house above what the affordable value was. You know, it's a sad day for the real estate market. And from my standpoint, I did see your letter come through our email, and I actually would like to thank you for sending the letter to the town, because we have had some issues with our monitoring agent, which is CHAPA, notifying the town timely. And from my standpoint, you seem to be going about trying to do this the right way, and I certainly appreciate that.
Thank you.
I don't know. I know that there are some members of the Affordable Housing Trust here who might have had some thoughts on the issue also. Not really certain, though. But I think that from the Affordable Housing Trust standpoint, I think that if there was the opportunity that we could have somehow, aided in keeping this unit affordable, would like to do that, but not at the expense of holding up this fine young lady here. So I just hope that maybe at some point they might have some ideas to help you as far as selling it, and still have the town keep it affordable.
What I'm actually asking is not to sell it as an affordable.
No, I understand, but in other words, it's possible that you could just mention to the new owners that if it is voted that this board agrees, that you just might mention to the buyers even that maybe the Affordable Housing Trust could help them with the down payment in order to keep the unit as an affordable unit, but not to hold you up in any way.
Yeah, understood. And we tried to discuss that with the buyer, and they're very adamant that the deed restriction be lifted.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you doing that.
Okay. We did try for 11 months to sell it, and I mean, honestly, we wanted to keep it as an affordable unit. We think it's a good program. And I think the process is not one that's codified. It's not something, maybe, to my knowledge, it's not precedent. So it doesn't seem like, I didn't know what channels to go through. So back in February, we did issue a conveyance letter to the town, letting them know we had this unit for sale. And I sent it to, I'm not sure, I think maybe the town planner would have received that. And then I just wasn't sure the proper channels to go through, but the town was aware. If not the Affordable Trust. To tell you the truth, I wasn't even sure that existed. And if I had known, I certainly would have contacted them.
Yeah. Great. As I said, we appreciate. We did get a copy of your letter.
Mr. Begley?
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. I got your email and your letter. I'm a little disappointed that the town didn't respond by directing you to the Affordable Housing Trust. I think they could have been helpful to you from probably the beginning of your process. And I have a question for Mr. Andrews through you, Mr. Chair. Who currently, on the town side, who keeps kind of the stock, who has the inventory of the 40B housing stock, who would respond to a letter like from Mrs. Sheridan? Would it be CETA? Would it be the town planner? Or is there not someone designated, and can we do so?
This is a town, through you, Mr. Chairman, this is a town planning department issue. I know the CETA department has helped out in the past on some of their work on affordable housing, but this is a planning department matter.
So the planning department, you let them know that you already had a buyer, or you let them know when you were beginning the process?
When I was beginning the process, I contacted the town planner. I'd been in contact with Mr. Charbonneau and his secretary, I believe, Mrs. Sampson. And I did contact CETA, and they directed me. CETA was actually, they weren't sure what to do. They directed me to the town planner because they were my first stop, sort of. I contacted them first because community economic development, that sounded like it might be affordable housing. They directed me to the town planner, and I didn't hear from the town after that. So what I did on my own accord was go down to speak to a woman. I can't remember her last name, but it was Pamela at the Housing Authority on Sandwich Road, and I left her all of my information, and she said, she'd try to help me out too. So they had a packet. I made up my own advertising flyer and everything at that time with pictures, contact information, details. There was just no response at the time. I'm not sure if maybe there wasn't a demand. I don't know what the situation was with that.
I'm a little disappointed that this citizen hit a brick wall. That you did all the right things, and you ended up having to go through the process yourself. From looking at your lengthy packet, you went through all the appropriate channels in order to get to this point. But I think it shouldn't have been as much of a struggle, and I would hope that Mr. Andrews would address this issue, because you ended up going to the town planner and it just stopped. And then you ended up going to the housing authority, and they assisted you with the process, or no?
Well, they had another affordable under the 40B umbrella also on Linwood Ave, maybe. Does that sound familiar? It was at the same time,
Yes.
and they were marketing that one. So I said, well, maybe if there's a lottery for that house, maybe if somebody doesn't get the lottery for that house, maybe they'd be interested in this house. And at that time, she said that, well, they don't even have anybody interested and qualified for the lottery. Because not only do you have to be interested in the house, you also have to be qualified to purchase it, because there's income guidelines and that sort of thing. So at that time, and it was early on in the process for that other house too, the Linwood Road, whatever. It was over in East Wareham, I think. And at that time, there wasn't any interest in that house. That's what I was told, and that's really the last I heard about it on that. But I left my full packet. That had, it was full color pictures of the house, and I do have a copy of it if anybody wants to see it, just to show you like the efforts that I did try to make to try to keep the house an affordable unit.
I appreciate your efforts, Mrs. Sheridan, and I apologize for some of the difficulties that you encountered.
Thank you.
Mr. Holmes?
I think there's only I've met one person, Mrs. Begley, who actually had a complete list of every unit in town. I won't give out her name, but I'll give you some hints. She works with the Zoning Board of Appeals, and her husband is on the Westfield Study Committee. And that's all I'll say about that. But she's the only person I know that had a complete list of every affordable unit in town. That was complete just a while ago. I agree that the process could probably be worked on, but that's all I have.
Any other questions? If not, is there anybody here from Affordable Housing Trust want to step up to the plate, or CPC?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just also
Yes, go ahead.
point this out. I think this is probably, as the phrase goes, the tip of the iceberg. This is not going to be a one-time issue from what I can see. And I will, in the morning, send a memo to the town planner, Mr. Charbonneau, to direct him to come up with a set of policy proposals to look at this so that we can better assist not only the process, but work closely with the Affordable Housing Trust and the CPC going forward, because I do believe, with Selectwoman Begley's point, that we should have a set of procedures in place so that people can understand where they are in the process and take stock of where they are and work with the town in a more, I guess, business-friendly way. So I will be sending that memo out, and I also just want to say that in other towns that I've talked to, other town administrators and managers, we're seeing this become more prevalent, that we're going to see other housing units come up that need to be evaluated on a basis. I intend to work with town council on a set of procedures for that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, whoever wants to speak first, from what organization, identify yourself.
Good evening, Chairman Cruz. Actually, we just discussed it, and I'll speak. Brenda Ekstrom from the Wareham Affordable Housing Trust, and Sandy Slavin from the Wareham Affordable Housing Trust. I spoke to Ms. Sheridan earlier today. We discussed it at our meeting last week when it came to our attention. Thank you. Mr. Schneider gave it to us and he brought it to our attention, and we discussed it. And one of the things that we had talked about and I spoke to Ms. Sheridan today, was that we were willing, exactly what Mr. Schneider said, as far as working on putting some towards the deposit, some towards the ultimate cost of it. My understanding is that Ms. Sheridan has a buyer. She just wants to get it finished. It has been 11 months. We hate to see it go. And I told Ms. Sheridan that if anything happens with this sale, if it falls through, then we would love to work with her to be able to market it at a more attractive price and terms that would help her, that if this sale falls through, that we could keep it affordable and we could go forward with that. And I guess we're more or less up here to also just say that going forward, if we can get, if the planning department is going to keep track of these, because we have, Mr. Holmes, you said that there's only one person that has a list. We have a list. We have a list from DHCD of the ones that they recognize, but we're not the monitoring agency and the monitoring group.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, Mrs. Begley, there are now 2 people that I know of who have a list.
Well, it's the board. It's the board, but we have, the board has it. The Affordable Housing Trust Board has it.
Can we continue with this? Thank you.
And we have the list. However, we are not the monitoring agency, and there isn't anyone, from my understanding, that monitors them in town. And that's really what we need. We have CHAPA. CHAPA, usually, they monitor probably about 80%, I think, Mr. Schneider, is that correct, in town? I think we figured out that they monitor them, but that's through an agreement through the zoning board when the 40B is developed. Any of these small lip ones or anything, they're not overseen by anyone. But they all do have to go through zoning and or planning. So that's, I think Mr. Andrews' point is very good as far as getting them to do like some type of monitoring on it. But going forward, if anything, if you grant this, if anything falls through, we will be working with Ms. Sheridan. And if not, and going forward, any of these projects, we would hope that the town, the first stop that they would refer to would be the Affordable Housing Trust to see what we can do to help them.
Right, that sounds good. Now, is this the first one that's been brought to your attention?
This is the first one that we had brought to our attention, yes.
So now with this being brought forward, we would have a procedure to facilitate anything else that comes before us.
Exactly, right? As long as we're informed of it, we can work with people.
Okay, so if Mr. Andrews will follow up on his suggestion earlier. Right. And this will be a learning process for all of us. Mrs. Slavin, it looks like you.
We were just saying if I missed anything.
I'm just saying we are trying very hard to keep on top of what is affordable in town, working toward including more homes and dwellings so they get count in our affordability. We've offered and allowed expenditures so that certain items, certain developments that were in question can be reconsidered for affordable. We're trying very hard to keep our inventory and increasing it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
There's going to be one go around. Any questions from the board? We'll start.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to suggest that we lift the restriction, but I wasn't sure if there is specific language that we would need in order to accommodate.
Okay, wait up. Before we make the motion, any other questions on what? Okay. Mr. Bowen?
Mr. Chairman, I'd suggest a motion as follows. I move to lift the restriction, to waive the town's option to purchase, and to authorize the chairman of the Board of Selectmen to execute said waiver.
So moved.
Second.
I hope someone caught that because I got the fast to move to lift the restriction.
You got it?
Okay, you have it? Okay. Whose motion?
It's Mike's motion. I seconded it.
Second?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Merry
Thank
Christmas.
Okay.
We still have to vote.
We aren't finished. We aren't finished yet.
I thought you. I'm sorry.
Motion
Don't
made-
get too excited.
I'm new.
Motion made by Mike, second by Kara. Questions? To the left? To the right? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Merry Christmas.
Now you can be
Thank you very
excited.
much.
Enjoy your holidays.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you. Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Mr. Chair, before we move off this topic of, you're good, yeah. And I'm just wondering if it would be appropriate for us to draft a policy of how to handle these I mean, it's not going to be the first we're going to see, unfortunately, with the market conditions seemingly continuing to deteriorate.
I thought the town administrator just said he was going to direct Mr. Chavino tomorrow to have a...
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. That's...
Well, I think it would be better for you to start drafting it now instead of us trying to make something right now. Because
Okay.
you can go over it 2 or 3 times and then come before us.
I just want to make sure that, yeah, we don't have another one fall through the cracks quite like this.
Okay.
Good.
Next, Mr. Chairman, we have the fiscal year 12.
No, any other?
Hey,
I have a file for you tomorrow, so I'm going home to...
For me?
No, not for you.
Oh.
For all of us.
Merry Christmas, Rich.
Christmas.
I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you for your participation. We have the fiscal year. I'm on. Oh, right. Any other town business? I'm sorry, I missed D. I already crossed it off. I start with Mrs. Winslow.
I have. Oh, you know what? I missed announcement. Did you make the announcement for me that I texted you?
I had shut my phone off, so.
Oh. All right, I'll pull it up and do it under liaison reports.
Mrs. Begley? Town business. Yeah, Mr. Yeah. All right.
I guess my question is this. I guess it's under any sewer business, so I'm all set.
Excuse me, if you want a conversation, please step outside.
Okay, next, Okay, Mr. Cruz, did you have anything? Okay, next then we're up to sewer business. First, we have the fiscal year 2012 first half omitted commitment. And I would make a motion to approve this letter signed and be sent to Mr. Foster, the treasurer collector. Please accept, it says here, Mr. Foster, town treasurer, 54 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass. Fiscal year 12 first half sewer user omitted commitment. Dear Mr. Foster, please accept this letter as this board's first half omitted commitment for fiscal year 2012. Sewer users fee in the amount of $22,897.87 per vote of the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Question?
Yeah, I threw that word selectmen in there.
All up.
It was more of a habit. It doesn't say selectmen. It just says board because it's not the Board of Selectmen. It's the Board of Sewer Commission. Just the board. Doesn't say in the letter.
Questions?
No. I know what I'm reading.
Excuse
right
me.
there.
Are we finished?
I'll just read
The
this
motion's
statement
on.
again. I'm going to read the statement again. Dear Mr. Foster, please accept this letter as this board's first half omitted commitment for fiscal year 12 sewer users in the amount of $22,897.87 per a vote of the board.
Second.
Second time around. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
3-0-0.
Well, there's four of us.
Oh,
How do you
four.
get 300? Did you vote yes?
You're right, no.
400?
400.
Okay. Next, Mr. King. Oh, he's already. That's my man. Here we go. All right.
On
You're
that
gonna
board,
talk about a sewer tie-in.
we'll add Board of Sewer Commissioners in the future.
You got four on
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Yes, Mr. Russo.
I find this request curious, since earlier in the evening we discovered that, oh,
Pomodoro's is trying to correct a faulty septic system.
Mr. Campina.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Pomodoro's has come forward and asked us to consider a set of plans here in regards to connecting to the sewer to mediate a failed septic system. What I'd like to do at this time, I had talked to council a little earlier. In the original proposal, they asked for an easement from JR Towing. They were going to grant them an easement, a 12-foot utility easement, to run this pipe all the way to the back of their property, through the easement, and into Tow Road, where we have a manhole. I got the plans this afternoon from GAF Engineering, and I'm not too happy with the language of the easement. It's now called a licensed sewer area. I asked Mr. Bowen what that meant. I had also asked Mr. DeSays earlier, and what they're telling me is a license can be revoked, an easement becomes a deed. So I have a concern. So I'm asking that we table this. I want to get back to the owner. I want to get back to the attorneys. I want to make sure, because I don't think we should grant an extension for sewer and someday it doesn't exist. So I want clarification. So I'm asking.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we table this until such time as Mr. Campina is satisfied and brings it back before the Board of Sewer Commissioners.
second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. For further study until you come back with.
I'm going to meet tomorrow with the parties and start getting some type of, I'm asking to get the language. I'm going to fax it to Mr. Bowen for total vetting of it, and then we'll go from there on his advice, because I'm not happy the way it is.
When you have the information.
I apologize for wasting the board's time, but I got this late, so I apologize.
That's why we're moving it, so you don't waste their time.
Okay, you want to state your motion again, but not the table. Just postpone, right?
Make a motion to postpone until such time as
I
Mr.
withdraw my second.
Campina tells us he's ready to move forward.
Right. okay.
Second.
Second. Any other questions, since we both have the same?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 4-0-0.
Any other sewer business?
I have none. Zero.
Mr. Chairman? I have my hand up.
Both of us do.
We'll start from there.
Nothing. Sewer
said
business?
nothing.
I don't have any sewer business. Thank you,
Mrs.
Mr. Chair.
We always go to you before you go to.
Okay. Ladies first.
Yeah.
We were supposed to, I'm sorry? I haven't signed it yet. I'm talking, I can't sign and talk. Mr. Cruz, I wonder if we couldn't put Contract 3 on an upcoming agenda. I understand that each and every one of them is getting more and more full, so I would hope that we get it sometime in the month of January, if at all possible, if not in the beginning of February.
Yeah, we'll make sure that Janet reads the disc, or looks at the disc, so we can have it, and they can check on
Dates,
said,
appropriate
the
dates.
Right.
My other question is this, and I wanted to speak to Mr. Andrews about this. Is there, I had asked him earlier if there was something that this board needed to vote on, and I can ask Mr. Campina. Is there something for Contract 2 that this board needs to vote on so that the assessments and the betterments can go out on with a tax bill?
The betterments, I'm not so sure. Tonight you voted on, I wasn't here, I apologize, but you voted on
Just
15
factor.
and 16, right? So,
Yeah.
so there's nothing you're on. That has to go back. We have a stall in the whole process because vendors weren't paid. This is going to pay them. So yes, there's nothing to vote on at this time.
So there's nothing to vote on yet to accept the project. Plus, I'd like to hear from you before they're paid in full, about some of the issues, the punch list that you had discussed the last time you were here.
Absolutely. And also, some things have to happen. As far as accepting the station, they owe us 14 days of running those pumps, which hasn't been done in the past. It's part of the contract. I emphatically already said I want it done. So all these issues will be vetted, and when I feel, or I believe, I'll advise you that I think we've done everything, and you can review it, and then you can make the final decision on how we move forward. But
So there's nothing that this, so Mr. Andrews is back. So we wouldn't, we haven't accepted this yet. They're
Correct.
Still, right.
They
We're
haven't.
still in process of kind of getting them to do what they need to do with
Yes.
the malfunctioning systems, and
Yes.
there was a
Contract
pump
2 they
station-
own.
Yeah,
Contract 1 we own.
we own
But-
contract 1.
Yes, we do. But they're also working with us, as I spoke, from last time we spoke.
That's right.
They're working with us. Matter of fact, I suggested Mr. Giudice write a letter to this board. I hope he has. If he hasn't, I'll remind him again. But he's working with us on the issue in Contract 1 about the mixing valves.
Yes.
So he's working on that now. They're trying to put something together. So they are addressing it, and I'll keep you abreast on that, but I have nothing from him in writing. But I did ask him to write you, the board, to update you, the board, so you would know exactly where we're going with this and what his position is. And if he hasn't done that yet, I'll call him again tomorrow and reiterate that fact that he needs to contact the board.
So we're not kind of pressed for time because there's still ongoing issues.
Yes, ma'am, we're not pressed for time at all. You're absolutely
All right, my other question is this. Are there any warranties that are soon to expire that you are having issues with any of the equipment?
On, again, the pumps on Contract 1, actually this month is a year. However, because we made notification throughout the entire, I would say we started in July, making note to CDM in writing that we have issues. So we're still following through. So the way I understand it, and it was presented to me by CDM, if the warranty ends and we have a warranty issue, an example, these particular motors and pumps, the mixing, they don't work, that they will resolve it because we made notification. And I'll actually have them put that in writing also to you.
In writing would be perfect.
Yes.
And running it by town council probably wouldn't be a bad
Absolutely.
idea either.
Absolutely. Because we put everything in writing that we think is a concern, and we're doing that specifically because we want to let them know, they're on notice, that we are not happy and something will have to be done. I've suggested they must have owner insurance, there's all kinds of ways, but they need to find a way to make it right. So when they respond to us in writing, then I'll turn it over, and then town council can move forward, because I'm not going to let it go.
Now, I understand that there's a chain of command for the whole sewer issue. Certain words I don't want to use. And so it would be the sewer commissioners to the town administrator to Mr. Gifford
Correct.
to you, correct?
Correct.
So when you have correspondence with them and they hopefully have written correspondence with you in writing always, do you just share it with Mr. Gifford and Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
I wonder if it's possible just to share it with the sewer commissioners as well. It's not necessarily something we're not going to discuss by email, but at least we'll all know, as opposed to being surprised about,
Absolutely.
you
I
know,
agree.
ineffective mixing valves.
It's just adding to the CC. Absolutely. Not a problem.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Stokes?
I just have two comments, Guy. One, I would suggest reviewing the warranties.
Okay.
I seem to recall last fall where work was not done yet, and we voted not to accept some of those things, and we didn't accept them until January, February. So I think that some of those warranties that you think are expiring this month are actually not expiring until around February-ish. So you might want to look at that as well, okay?
Okay, I will. Chris Sharp.
Because there were some things we did not accept, and we extended that. Remember that, Walter?
Okay, I will look.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. I see Mrs. Ekstrom is shaking her head. Do you remember that,
Mrs.
I will
Winslow.
look.
No, she's shaking her head. And,
We did, but I do believe that they all expire at the end of the year because I don't believe the contractor was willing to give us that.
I have all the
don't think we gave them an
correspondence.
option.
Chris Sharp, before he left as a present to the town, he gave us boxes of correspondence. I'll just go through them and see what I can find.
I'm sure it's in our minutes as well.
Yeah.
My second comment is, and this is more troubling to me, is that, we come here every Tuesday night, and we sit here till 10:30, and it just seems that we talk about things, but nothing happens, 3 or 4 weeks ago, Mrs. Bagley brought up a point. Mr. Schneider followed up on that. I believe I asked all of us asked questions about it. And we were to have you and John Foster come back here and explain to us the ingredients that make up paying $500,000 out of a project that we've never carried forward. And you were going to do some research on it. I believe Mr. Schneider asked that the treasurer collector come back with you because we've paid these bills. And you were going to do some research on where the money came from and what account it came on. So, I mean, how long does it take to schedule that for you two guys to come back, two people to come back, and give the board an answer? And the public an answer. A lot of us have been waiting 4 or 5 weeks now for an answer.
It's a good question. I'll talk to Mr. Foster in the morning, and we'll get on the next agenda.
Mr. Andrews?
The very next agenda, put us on, and I'll be sure we're here.
I mean, he's the boss of the town department heads. I mean,
there was an email went to
can
Mr.
we get an
Foster.
answer?
I apologize. I didn't follow it up. I apologize. So I'll follow it up.
Well, it was a comment. It wasn't necessarily directed right at your head, but
no, I'll take the responsibility.
You were there that night.
There.
Mr. Andrews, can we get these two gentlemen in to explain to us
We sure can.
where this money came from, what accounts it came out of, as we talked about it that night?
Right.
Can we get an answer?
We sure can.
When?
Well, I mean, is next Tuesday too soon to go on?
Not
the
at
agenda?
all.
Okay, we'll
I have the general answers. I don't have a complete grasp of the betterments, but it's there, and so he'll explain it to us. So that's not too soon at all. Not at all.
Well, before we sit
and I'm not saying you didn't have a handle on it, but you didn't know where the money came from, and that was the question that most of us were asking.
Yep.
Where did that $500,000? What
excuse me,
account?
Before we set a date, make sure that you and Foster are on the same page. Don't say next Tuesday and then it isn't. Make sure you're on the next page, because if it isn't, as soon as you're ready, come back.
I'll confirm with Mr. Foster in the morning. We'll contact Mr. Andrews, and then he can set it at that point. So we'll communicate.
I think we'd appreciate that, guy. Thank you very much.
Apologize. Definitely.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, because I know Mike's on the same page. When you're in construction, documentation is going to help you.
Right.
Warranty or no warranty. So I'm glad you're doing everything the way it's supposed to be done. And
We're
just
trying. Thank you.
read the small print.
Yeah, I know. It's good. But
Thank you.
It is. Thank you.
Mr. Clerk.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Liaison reports.
I'll be here for years.
Mrs. Winslow.
Just a couple things, and if Mr. Chair will indulge me, I wanted to make my announcement that I missed this evening. I apologize. My daughter had to go to the emergency room unexpectedly. The Sunday will be the Haley Hope Raiser from 10 to 6 at the Elks Club. All you're asked to bring, they'll have some crafts and activities for the kids, a $10 gift card to, there's actually a list of places on the website to local stores near Children's Hospital, and they'll be delivering those, what they collect on Sunday to Children's Hospital right near Christmas Eve to help families that are struggling with their own children who have leukemia. And as far as liaison reports go, a couple quick things. The Library Board of Trustees, Mr. Andrews, can we get that disc to them from that open meeting law? I saw that email from Mr. Flaherty today. Can we...
Mr. Chairman, through you, it was done today.
Okay, good.
We have extra discs in the office, and I think there was just some confusion that the disc resides with the town clerk. Who is responsible in the end for,
okay.
For open meeting?
As long as they have it. The weekend before last was the annual book fair. They had a couple vendors. It was really very busy. I was there for a couple hours in the morning, and as usual, the baked goods went really quick because they were really good. The other issue that came up at the last meeting was the recorder that was checked out of the office failed to work. So I'm wondering And obviously tonight's not the night to do it, but we probably need to have some type of system in place to ensure that the recorders that are being loaned out work before it becomes 7 o'clock at night and they discover that it doesn't work. And I'm not sure, I don't have the, but just to, for the future, we need to figure out how to address that. They did manage to get through that night. Somebody did have a recorder, so. And they will be meeting on December 15th, which is this Thursday. The Capital Planning Committee will also be meeting on Thursday. And I do believe I mentioned last week that the Recycling Committee was very pleased with the outpouring of generosity from the local business community, which supported America Recycles Day. And that's it.
Mr. Cruz, through you, just for folks' awareness, Mr. Cruz and I, Chairman Cruz and I, are co-liaisons to the Finance Committee, and tomorrow night there will be a joint meeting of the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen to discuss the fiscal year 11 audit here in this room. And will that be televised? Okay, I just wanted to be sure that it was going to be televised. That's all I had.
We did get an email saying they would.
We did? Okay, great.
Derek's shaking his head.
Oh, I got it. Oh, Mrs. Begley. Mrs. Begley has to go next.
He enjoys us.
Reports? Anything? Well, because ladies first. That's what you said the last time.
Well, I don't have a liaison report. However, with this board's indulgence, when when Selectman Holmes is done, I just want to visit for a minute and a half to other town business.
Okay. I do have one thing, and I really need your help, fellow colleagues. A month or so ago, we voted, and I asked you to do this, so to vote on the makeup of the Tremont Nail Master Committee. Now, and that was all well and good that we voted to have the makeup of the board. Unfortunately, in doing so, we made that motion for this to happen immediately. Well, that's where the problem lies, because now I don't have a committee any longer. I don't have any members. I have no chairman, no clerk, no other members. Members have had to resign.
Have you posted?
Well, no. I mean, the point is here's what I was going to ask for your indulgence. You give me a few weeks to try to work this thing out, because right now, I think I have one person left, or two. It's a 7-member board. We'll never have a quorum to do anything. So what I was hoping to do was maybe if we could edit our motion and give me till February 1st to get this straightened out over the holidays, to try to get some membership in, because the chairman had to resign. We lost the member from the Historical Commission. He had to resign. The Wareham Village Association, which we eliminated, is not there anymore. Planning and Cedar have not appointed any members. We have one guy who we all know and love, and he has issues sometimes making it to meetings. So I have maybe 2 at-large openings, but there's nobody to fill these. There's no quorum ever. It's impossible to get a quorum at this point.
What is the hesitancy for Historical Society, Historical Commission, Planning Board?
Right, we changed because some of those folks were on there representing that group.
Yes.
So they can no longer serve.
Why?
Because of the makeup of the board. They had to resign.
Why were they serving as?
They were serving as those committee members.
No, it's not making sense to me. I'm sorry.
If I was the
So a planning board member that is appointed from and by the planning board.
No, if I'm a member at large, and I'm also on the planning board, I had to resign.
Unless the planning board.
Right, or be the planning board representative.
Right.
But that's not how it worked out.
Well,
So
there you
we
go.
have somebody.
There you go. Then historical
What
commission.
about historical
They
commission?
just
Have
have
they-
to put it on their agenda if you
have they done
notify
it?
their
Yeah,
chair.
but right now we have no board.
Right, but if you notify the chair of the historical commission, and was it the historical society as well? It was two.
Yeah, historical commission.
And district.
Cedar hasn't appointed anybody. Planning. You
So-
say somebody did appoint. They did appoint somebody from planning.
Could we?
So we get that.
Could we have? Could if you're? Are you the liaison for that?
Yeah.
Could if you? I'm sorry, Mr.
And
Chairman.
that's why
Sorry,
I'm
if you-
saying I don't have any members.
But
on
if you
this.
notify the chairs to put it on their agenda to appoint to the Tremont Nail Committee,
Right.
then it'll be on their agenda and they'll do that.
All right. I'll put her
And
an
then
email.
you'll automatically have a quorum.
But just so you understand, at this point, there is no Tremont Nail
Mhm.
Master Plan Committee. It is now defunct. Well, I understand that, but it was because of that vote we took to make it immediate that we now have no committee. So you want to leave this defunct until such time as we have enough members? It's fine with me. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, just a quick question through you to Mr. Holmes. Steve, why were you asking for a February date?
Well, no, that would give me at least I could hold a membership for another 5 or 6 weeks here and give me a chance to try to get some members and try to figure this all out. But it's fine to have a defunct committee. It doesn't matter to me. I was just asking if I could get some time because we made it official immediately that night.
Well,
as opposed to saying, okay, you got 60 days to reform the committee and get people, and so now I have to go and I'll go to the chairs. They'll talk to their members. They'll have to come in here. Well, I think some of those automatically get appointed. We don't have to approve those.
Steve, can I ask you one quick question? I know that I haven't heard you bring back any liaison reports really from that committee. So it doesn't sound like they were working on anything.
No.
So there's no urgency?
Well, I mean, they were working on some things, but obviously we had an issue of a quorum. We've had an issue of a quorum probably most of this year. I think maybe we met once because people were sick and people didn't show up. We didn't have a Cedar rep. We didn't have. There was another rep we didn't have. So Mr. Slavin has been just trying to carry the ball, but now he's gone. So.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification, Steve.
Yeah, we could just leave it defunct until such time as I don't think there's anything the town needs from them anyway, right? They only represent us. That's all. That's all I had. Motion to adjourn.
No, wait. Remember I said I had a
wait.
minute and a half?
One
Come
more.
on.
One more. You said 1 minute or less, I believe.
No, I said maybe 1.5 minutes, and you used up 5 seconds already. Liaison reports, Mr. Cube.
I'm teasing.
Community events had their meeting, and everything went hunky-dory, and they're all happy, so that makes us happy. But anybody with events that need to submit anything to community events, they're on the email now, so you can go through the email and get the information you need. Thank you.
That it? Okay. So for other town business, transportation was inadvertently left off the agenda tonight, and although it's a good thing that we started at 6, I do not want this to go another week, and I would like it very much to go on next week's agenda. If, Mr. Chair, I saw that you had posted, we have a couple meetings in January because of the holidays, and then I saw that it was only 2 meetings in February. Is that correct? It's a short month anyway. But I'm wondering if we should, we're trying to cram things onto agendas, and we're looking at each week and knowing that they're going to be a mile long. If we're, because of the holidays and in February, only going to meet 2 times, what about meeting at 6 so that we can get it all in instead of being here till 11 or 12 o'clock at night?
I don't know about starting at 6 for every meeting, but we got the January set up. We can always change the meetings to 3 if we need 3, once the agenda is posted. Right now, we had a tough agenda now, and just even tonight, we're adding 3 more things on it. That's why we need to look at our agenda, because if we're going to post that, and it's going to take...
Well, Mr. Chair, we started at 6 because of transportation.
Right. look
And
what
then it
happened
was
to
left,
Long-Term.
yeah, and then it was left off the agenda. So because it was left off the agenda, I'm respectfully asking that it be put on next week's.
Right. It would be put on, but we got to look at the whole agenda to make sure that some of the things that we said was going to go on tonight may not be able to go on.
But would it be possible, since we're not going to meet for the next 2 Tuesdays after next week, is that correct?
For what?
That's correct.
No.
Start at
transportation
6.
will be on-
No, but start at 6 next week, no? Because
We didn't request anything for next week. Those 3 or 4 items that we put
January.
on for January 17th, with the exception of asking Mr. Andrews to get the treasurer.
From
collector
Foster.
in the sewer. And I think that would be a 5-minute discussion.
Mr. Chair, Shirley did send an email out earlier today that that transportation would be on the agenda for the 20th.
Just
I'm not sure if you saw that.
one,
I did see that, Mrs. Winslow, but I don't think that the people that are watching this or here saw that email. Because I'm sure there was some confusion because we were very clear last week when we spoke that at 6 o'clock, the only agenda item that we're going to begin with was transportation. But thank you.
Mr. Smith.
and on that note, Mr. Chairman, I wonder if it might be something that the board might want to consider. It's been some time, or maybe perhaps never, since at least I can remember, that the Board of Selectmen has actually met with the school committee. Perhaps it would be a good idea to invite the school committee here for half an hour discussion related to the transportation issue. I'd like to at least extend the invitation.
That sounds like a good idea. I think that's what we were trying to accomplish, but it didn't transpire, so we can try again.
Do you need a motion for that, Mr. Chairman?
What was that?
Do we need a motion
Uh,
to extend the invitation?
If you want to do that, because I think we started to do it, it would be nice to have a motion since you won't bring up any more violations, ethics laws or open meeting laws. That would be good.
All right, I'll second that.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Andrews will take care of that.
I second.
Motion made by Mike, second by, where's my piece of paper? Mike and second by Steve. Try to get a committee or a meeting.
Just a discussion, correct?
I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a good idea. Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Motion to adjourn?
Hold on a second.
Wait up.
Hold the horses
I haven't
here.
even finished writing about this.
Let him finish the vote.
Didn't we vote?
Yeah, we just did 5-0.
Right. He has to announce it, Mrs. Winslow.
Okay. Did you
And next, I want the board, my colleagues, to put their thinking caps on over the next 6 days, because next Tuesday night, I'm going to come back to you during liaison reports, and we're going to be discussing our volunteer dinner. That
right.
we have,
He's
that
good for that.
former selectman Mrs. Ekstrom started a couple of years ago. And last year, we kind of moved it to January, and I thought that was nicer because of the holidays. So next week, I'll be bringing it up, so get ready for your volunteer hats. Last year, I think most of us were there. It was a great time. So we'll talk about that.
Steve's a good cook.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made, second. All in favor?
Aye.